Yo, Atlas speaking, and welcome to part 13 of What If I Was Reincarnated in the World of Pokemon and Became the Greatest Pokemon Tactician. Let the tale begin. Chapter 321. After only a few minutes, the fireworks were over and Professor Oak appeared on the large podium in the arena with a microphone. Before Professor Oak could say anything, many viewers started clapping and screaming. This favorable response and enthusiasm displayed how popular Professor Oak is in Kanto. Samuel Oak was very popular with the general public and at the same time was a person with many influential friends. Among his many friends, there are also many very powerful trainers. He was a childhood friend of Agatha. They remained good friends and top-class Pokemon trainers until Oak stopped battling and became interested in Pokemon research. Even though Agatha said that he became soft and started to regard him as a fool, Agatha still sees Oak as a friend. Besides, Samuel Oak was not an unimportant person in the Kanto Alliance. Although he is no longer the champion of Kanto, he is still affiliated with the Pokemon League as an advisor. Alex looked at Professor Oak with a slightly surprised expression. He didn't think Professor Oak would show up in this tournament. After all, he is probably the strongest trainer in all of Kanto. He understood roughly from the games how strong Professor Oak should be. Although in this world, Alex cannot assume his knowledge of the games as an unbreakable truth, Professor Oak was a champion in this world too, so that he should by no means be much weaker than he is in the games. If Alex had to guess who is the strongest trainer in Kanto, he would say without hesitation that it is Professor Oak. Even if he had no real proof. Professor Oak showed a warm smile when he felt the audience's excitement. He waited until the audience calmed down a bit before he said, "Welcome to the Kanto Champion Tournament. These 64 participants in front of you are the ones who made it so far after the preliminary rounds and are among the strongest trainers in all of Kanto. Each of these participants belongs to the absolute elite of Kanto. Please give them a big round of applause." When he said that, the audience roared with applause and cheering. Professor Oak waited until the crowd quieted down, and then he said, "On the first day, the participants will fight 3v/S3 Pokemon battle against each other until only 16 participants are left. Tomorrow, these top 16 participants will fight until we get our 4 semifinalists for the third day. So after 3 days we will know who of these participants is the strongest and will win this year's Kanto Champion Tournament. Okay, now that everything has been said, let's start the tournament." Alex and the other participants went back to the waiting room after the opening ceremony. At the same time, the several large TVs in the room began to show which participants were fighting against each other in the first round. Alex looked who his opponent is in the first round and he started to smile. Participant 26, Misty. Pokemon, Milotic LV45, Quagsire LV46, Lapras LV47, Dugong LV47, Golduck LV49, Starmie LV50. Alex knew that it is extremely lucky that he doesn't have to fight a top 16 participant in the first round. Even if he is sure that it was no coincidence that he got Misty as his first opponent. In the second round, there are only 32 participants left so that Alex has to fight against a top 16 participant in the second round. Although Misty wasn't a weak opponent, she is at least not bad for possible opponents in the first round that Alex can get. Alex also saw that his fight with Misty is the first fight of the tournament and that he should be ready in 10 minutes. He was a bit surprised that it would be the first fight of the tournament, but after thinking about it, it started to make sense. All top 8 participants cannot show a thrilling match in the first round and therefore are not a good choice for the first round. In comparison, the rivalry of Alex and Misty is interesting for the audience and the similar strength should make it a relatively close match. Misty saw when she got an opponent and didn't show any surprised expression. As if she had already expected it. Alex sat quietly without explaining his tactics to his Pokemon as he usually did. Because he had expected that he would get Misty as an opponent, he had a tactic against Misty's team and discussed it with his Pokemon after he saw Misty's team. He had several tactics for Misty that can be used in combat depending on the actual situation. Although he can't plan everything perfectly because he didn't know all the information about Misty Pokemon. He already saw the information of the 3 strongest Pokemon from Misty Pokemon but, that was more than half a year ago and therefore is no longer really up to date. As Alex was looking relaxed at the TV, a staff member walked in his direction. Behind the staff member was Misty, who followed him. Participant 20, right? Your fight is about to start. Please follow me. Alex and Misty walked out of the participant room as they followed this staff member. The staff member said that Alex should enter the arena first and that Misty should wait here briefly. A dramatic entrance? Haha, I like it. Alex felt a bit like a boxer getting an intro before his fight. When Alex entered the arena first, he heard applause and scream from the audience who recognized him. Alex couldn't hear what the commentators were saying, but he was sure they were listing his successes, as he had seen that they do so many times on TV at such important fights. Misty made an entrance almost immediately afterward, and she also got many cheers from the spectators. Alex even noticed that her cheering was a little louder and more intense than his. But he didn't feel that it was unusual. The fact that he was almost as popular as a gym leader is quite surprising in his opinion. The referee also appears in the arena, and he looked at both participants as he explained the rules again. When the fight was only a few moments away from the start, the spectators began to cheer louder and louder. Alex, who experienced such an intense atmosphere for the first time, felt a bit excited himself. Chapter 322. While both Alex and Misty were waiting for the signal from the referee, Misty suddenly started talking to Alex. I will defeat you. Alex looked at Misty with a surprised expression when he saw her serious expression and when she said those words with such a self-assured expression on her face. He can understand why Misty hyped herself so much up, even if most experts don't think she can win against Alex with a level disadvantage. Alex read a few reports about this fight and he knew that he was by far the favorite in this fight. It was not surprising when man considered that Alex was able to defeat Misty when she had a ridiculous level advantage against him. And now Misty has to fight him with a level disadvantage. Well, self-confidence is important. Misty, hearing the indifference from Alex's voice, and she started to get angry. She managed to calm herself down and so to get into this fight without that her emotion influenced her. From her first defeat against Alex, she had painfully learned what happens when she lets her emotions influence her. The referee began to inform both trainers that they should both call their first Pokemon at the same time, as soon as he showed his signal. When Alex and Misty got the signal, they both threw almost at the same time a Pokeball. Alex showed at first a surprised expression when he saw that Golduck not only trained 2 new moves on the expert rank but also trained a move on the master rank. He knew that an innate talent move would only take half as long to train on the master rank as a non-innate talent move, but that would still take Golduck at least 3 months. And only if it trains with the maximum efficiency. Otherwise, it would take longer. Alex began to think deeply, maybe I should bring at least 1 innate talent move on the master rank and not let Crobat, Scizor, and Gardevoir wait before they reach the shallow diamond potential? But it's more effective if I train their innate talent moves on the master rank after my Pokemon have a shallow diamond potential. So it's time saving later or more strength now? He stopped thinking about it and looked at the referee who was about to start the fight. 3, 2, 1, go! Gardevoir teleported to the outside of the arena almost immediately to get as much distance from Golduck as possible. He had created rudimentary tactics for Gardevoir against every Pokemon from Misty so that Alex doesn't even have to say a word. Of course, he will say something when a situation becomes so unoptimal that it is worth modifying the tactic. Misty said quickly, Plan 3. Alex had no idea what she was planning, but he still showed a calm expression. Gardevoir started preparing her move as Golduck was running in the direction of Gardevoir while he was preparing a move. Although Golduck is a water-type Pokemon, his species is still relatively quick on land so that it wouldn't take him long to get into attack range. Gardevoir completed the preparation of her move, and when she saw that Golduck watching her, she used her move immediately. Golduck looked at Gardevoir, to be able to avoid a possible move and to see it coming, but when Golduck unexpectedly looked at Gardevoir he felt so tired. Alex smiled when he saw Golduck fall asleep to the ground. Because Gardevoir had a level advantage and Golduck was looking at her, it makes it impossible for Golduck not to fall asleep after Gardevoir used her move. especially because Hypnosis is on the expert rank. Misty looked surprised and started screaming loudly at her Pokemon to wake up Golduck as quickly as possible. Gardevoir started preparing for her next move almost immediately after using Hypnosis. She used Thunder Wave and easily hit Golduck, who was still sleeping. Unfortunate, because it was a normal rank move, it wasn't as effective as it could be. Alex still has to get used to the fact that a Pokemon can be affected by several status moves. But gradually he found it no longer so weird when a Pokemon can be affected by more than one status move. Gardevoir used Psychic. According to his standard plan, Gardevoir would buff herself with Calm Mind and waste as much time as possible with Teleport at the same time. But because Golduck can now use Psych Up and even had it on the expert rank, the original plan was no longer optimal. Gardevoir immediately started preparing Psychic when Misty was still trying to wake up Golduck. Golduck suddenly woke up, but almost immediately afterward, Gardevoir finished her move. She used Psychic and hit Golduck, who didn't have the time or a chance to try to evade her attack. Golduck took good damage and lost a little over 20% from that one hit. Misty did not give Golduck any new calls but immediately called him back to her Pokeball before Gardevoir had time to prepare a new move. The referee said aloud, "Participant Misty makes a successful switch." He then looked at Misty when the referee said, "You have 30 seconds to switch to a different Pokemon." Although each Pokemon can be exchanged once per fight in this tournament, it is not permitted to change a Pokemon in the middle of combat. This rule was very similar to the one in the Kanto Rookie Tournament. Chapter 323, Misty looked solemn as she understood how poor this start was for her in this fight. She looked at Gardevoir, who can now also Hypnosis, and apparently had it on the expert rank, and she felt that her rival really didn't do anything other than to make progress with his Pokemon. Especially when she had learned that she had a level disadvantage in this fight, she felt as if Alex don't do anything other than to train his Pokemon. She had used so much time to train her Pokemon that she barely had time to do anything else, but the gap has only grown. Misty felt such a frustration. Even though she had given everything to become stronger, it was completely useless. What a monster, Misty thought with a serious expression when she called Golduck back. But no matter what, I won't give up. She absolutely wants to win against this monster, at least once. She wants and she will. Against Gardevoir, I need a Pokemon that is not only good at long-range combat but also perceives Gardevoir without its eyes. It's time to turn this fight in my direction. Alex watched Misty beginning to smile and he felt a little uneasy. He felt that Misty was starting to lose her mind, and that thought alone made him a little awkward. Misty started calling out her next Pokemon. Are you kidding me? Had it really leveled up after registering in this tournament? Besides, why did it now also have Light Screen and Recover on the expert rank? This is a terrible opponent for Gardevoir. Why am I never lucky? Together that Starmie also had a strong move on the master rank makes this Pokemon only more dangerous. The referee started the fight again. 3, 2, 1, go. Alex activated his Pokeball immediately and called Gardevoir back without giving Misty time. The referee said aloud, "Participant Alex makes a successful switch." He then looked at Alex when the referee said, "You have 30 seconds to switch to another Pokemon." Misty looked at Alex and said with a confused expression, "Why are you switching now? My Starmie is not even particularly good against your Gardevoir." Alex just looked at Misty and thought, she really has a talent as an actor. Unfortunately, she is unlucky that I know exactly how good her Starmie now is against Gardevoir. He doesn't wait 30 seconds to call his next Pokemon. The referee started the fight again. 3, 2, 1, go. Scizor wasted no time preparing a move as he ran towards Starmie. Misty said quickly, "Plan 1. Alex was a bit impressed that Misty had apparently made a plan for each of his Pokemon. Of course, it has to be a good plan or something like that is completely ineffective. Starmie began to levitate and then ran away from Scizor at a faster pace than his enemy as it prepared a move. Starmie is extremely fast in the water but not slow on land either. Sizer finished his move first and he used agility. After using that move, he became faster than Starmie. Starmie finished her move shortly afterward and she started using it directly. A huge amount of water appeared behind Starmie, moving swiftly like a huge wave towards Sizer. Surf was one of the best moves a water-type Pokemon can use because it not only does do satisfactory damage but also because it had a very large hit range and is difficult to evade. Especially for Pokemon that cannot fly or teleport. Sizer was hit and he lost more than 1/4 of his HP after that one hit. Alex knew that Sizer could not heal this damage with Roost, so Alex had no choice but to let Sizer fight extremely aggressively to do as much damage as possible to this Starmie. Sizer ignored his injuries and quickly runs in the direction of Starmie as he prepares a move. He managed to get in range quickly as his move became ready to use. Sizer used X-Scissor and hit Starmie with it. It deleted more than 1/3 of Starmie's HP but Misty still only shows a smile. Without Alex or Sizer having a chance to do anything, Starmie used Blizzard and hit Sizer who was still completely wet. The timing was so perfect that Alex thought Starmie was waiting for such a chance and would only use it move when Sizer didn't have time to use Protect. Sizer has been surrounded by an ice storm and he never feels as cold as he does now. But despite this cold misery, he immediately started preparing a new move. What made it even worse was that this ice storm surrounded him for 3 seconds and he noticed how his body became more immobile after every second passed. By the time Blizzard stopped, Sizer had only about 1/3 of his HP left and Sizer felt his whole body become extremely stiff. Sizer does not only lose HP but also his whole body becomes extremely inflexible. But Sizer showed a calm expression and immediately used the move that he had prepared in these 3 seconds. Because he was only 3 meters away from Starmie, he could use his move immediately. Like an unwavering warrior, Sizer used X-Scissor against Starmie, even with the pain he was feeling and with his stiff body which made his movements inflexible. Starmie began to distance himself from Sizer and prepare a move at the same time but was still hit by Sizer's X-Scissor. Alex showed a serious expression when he said 5. Sizer shows a nodded and without much preparation, he uses Bullet Punch. He runs towards Starmie at a ridiculous speed and swings a right hand at his opponent, as a boxer would. Starmie took a bit of damage and after absorbing that damage as it began to distance itself from Sizer again. But Sizer wasn't done yet. Almost immediately after that, he used Quick Attack and rammed his body against Starmie. Both attacks combined caused Starmie to lose around 15% of its HP. Though Sizer ability, Technician, is a big reason it did such good damage. Starmie finished its move in this time and it used Surf to end the fight. Sizer used Protect and he managed to absorb almost all of the damage. Alex knew that Sizer was now too slow to use his normal close combat moves, so he would have to use those weaker, fast moves to do damage. Unfortunately, these two moves cannot be used again immediately. Sizer knew that the next hit would surely defeat him, so he quickly prepared his next move. Starmie and Sizer finished with their moves at the same time. Sizer uses his only good ranged combat move, Aerial Ace. Starmie uses Surf and ends the fight with its victory. Chapter 324. Even though Misty had won this round, she saw how much damage Starmie had taken to win this fight, so that she was not really happy. A good hit and Starmie will fall unconscious to the ground, similar to Sizer. In comparison, Alex showed a smile as he healed Sizer and praised him at the same time. According to his opinion, Sizer carried out his plan optimally and brought the team one step closer to victory. The referee looked at Alex. You have 30 seconds to switch to a different Pokemon. He knew almost immediately which Pokemon he should choose. The referee started the fight again. 3, 2, 1, go. Misty knew that her Starmie can only complete a good blow before it becomes unconscious itself. And because Gardevoir is so far away, she didn't think that Blizzard had a good chance of hitting. Plan 6. Alex, as always, didn't say anything. He knew that his experienced Pokemon knew what to do when one Pokemon only needed one good hit to pass out. Gardevoir finished their move first. She doesn't waste time and uses Dazzling Gleam immediately, which had a very large hit range. Starmie only had a moment to use her move before she was hit by Gardevoir's move. She just managed to use Surf before a move knocked her unconscious. Gardevoir that finished earlier still didn't have enough time to use Teleport, but enough time to use Protect. So that she immediately used Protect. She was able to block almost all of the damage and Gardevoir still had almost full HP. Misty knew that she was in a very bad situation after losing her Starmie without doing any more damage to Alex's team. But she didn't want to give up and called her next Pokemon. Alex was a little impressed by how much stronger this Lapras has become compared to the last time he saw it. It not only improved its potential but now also had 2 expert rank moves and a master rank move. But Alex didn't really worry about Lapras. Gardevoir had a 3-level advantage and she didn't need many hits to beat Lapras. The referee started the battle. 3, 2, 1, go! As always, Alex didn't say anything and Gardevoir immediately started preparing her first move. Plan 1 and just look at Gardevoir's legs when aiming. Alex smiled when he saw that Misty trying to protect her Pokemon from the move, Hypnosis. He knew something like that will happen so that he had given Gardevoir the instructions that she should only use Hypnosis once in this fight. But if Misty weren't that smart enough he could still modify the plan in the middle of the fight to change this. So no matter what Misty did, Alex had a good answer for it. Gardevoir finished first and she used Psychic almost immediately after it finishes preparing. Lapras, who was very slow on land, had no chance to evade this attack by running out of range of Psychic. After she was hit she had a large wound on her upper body and she lost more than 33% of her HP. Gardevoir immediately started preparing her next move without wasting time. 2 more hits and the fight is over. Lapras endured the pain and she used Hail. All over the arena, it started to hail large ice balls, which fall to the ground at one quick pace. Fortunately, Alex and Misty are protected by the arena's shield or both could be injured by the hail. Lapras immediately started preparing her next move. But this time both Pokemon were finished at the same time. Lapras use Ice Beam and Gardevoir answer with another Psychic. Gardevoir ran out of time to use Teleport and could only endure this hit. She only lost 25% of her HP and that although all Pokemon that can learn the move, Teleport, have a bad HP value in this world. But Lapras had it even worse because she got even more damage from this Psychic than the last one. Lapras lost almost 40% of her HP from this one hit. Alex looked at Misty and showed a slightly disappointed expression. He thought that Misty would bring more to this fight after the battle against Misty's Starmie, but this fight she only showed good normal tactics. This is a practical tactic, but not if your Pokemon has a major level disadvantage and you lose with it. That is not enough. But Alex also understood why it is not so easy for one to make one effective tactic with only 3 moves, which is effective against his Pokemon. Alex said with a calm expression, H1. He already had a guess what Misty's plan probably is. Both Pokemon started preparing their move almost at the same time, even if Lapras had started a little earlier. Lapras finished quickly and she was again using her strongest move, Ice Beam. Gardevoir tried to evade with her speed but couldn't and she was hit again. Lapras did not start preparing a new move but seemingly did nothing. Gardevoir finished her move and at the same time, Alex looked at Misty as he said, "Do you think you can use a trick against me that I used against you?" But this time Gardevoir don't use Psychic, but the more powerful move, Hyper Beam. Lapras's Protect couldn't block enough damage and caused Lapras to fall unconscious to the ground. Misty looked at Alex in anger and began to turn both of her hands into fists. She wanted to win. But now it was unattainable. She didn't think that even her Paralysis Golduck could win against Gardevoir, and even if he has to beat another level 50 Pokemon from this monster trainer. Reality felt so cruel to her. Misty just wanted to go home right now. She healed Lapras and said to the referee with a tired expression, "I'm giving up." Chapter 325, the referee said loudly, participant Misty gave up. Participant Alex wins this match. The spectators in the arena loudly applauded Alex's remarkable victory, even if it wasn't a very great fight for many spectators. It was too one-sided and many viewers were a little disappointed with Misty. Especially the fans of Misty were very sad that Misty couldn't avenge her defeat against Alex from the Kanto Rookie Tournament. After her third defeat to Alex, Misty felt no special emotion but just felt exhausted. She didn't feel anger or sadness. Just tiredness. Although it was her third loss to Alex, she felt so helpless for the first time against Alex. It was not a close fight, and that although her opponent had hardly tried his best. She knew that Alex had more tricks up his sleeves than he showed, and this reflection destroyed completely her inner fighting spirit. Misty needed a break to get her motivation back after this awful fight. She doesn't say a word to Alex but began to leave the arena with a tired expression and with slow steps. "Misty, don't give up. Come back later and then get your victory. You're the best, Misty. I love you. Misty, I love you." When Misty started leading the arena, many spectators and fans of Misty began to cheer her up. Or most of them at least try. Misty heard the many encouraging words from so many spectators and she felt a little better. She even gave a slight smile when she heard the scream of one of her fans saying like a madman, "I love you" to her. Alex also started to leave the arena and he too began to hear a lot of positive words from the spectators. But while most of the yellings were positive for Alex, there were a few who insulted Alex. Idiots! Alex ignored the insults and calmly left the arena. He didn't really understand why those Misty fans insult him. It's not as if he'd done something unforgivably bad. Alex also doesn't try to understand such strange people and prefers to ignore them. Apart from that, there is only a very small minority that behave like that, anyway. He sat down again in the waiting room and saw a staff member waiting for him. The staff member looked at Alex and he said with a professional smile, "Congratulations on your victory, participant Alex. You will get the information about your next opponent within 30 minutes. But please remember that you now have at least 2 hours before your next match begins. You can leave the arena in the meantime, but please come back in time or you will be disqualified." Alex nodded and sat on an empty seat in the waiting room. He talked a bit with the staff member before the staff member said goodbye to him. He had no intention of leaving the arena and preferred to use this time to watch the fights of his maybe future opponents on the TV. Alex would like to go to the live seats to watch the fights of his opponents and thus use his system, but due to a rule of the tournament, participants who have not yet been eliminated are not allowed to be on these seats. Probably this rule was invented for a security reason. But even if Alex could see the fights live, it wouldn't matter if the strongest 16 participants only used their weakest Pokemon in the first round. Alex knew that in the next match he would get an opponent from the top 16 and that with bad luck it could be his last round. Because the top 16 participants cannot meet each other before the round of 16, will Alex definitely get a top 16 participant as his next opponent. According to Alex, he had a 0% win chance against the top 6 participants because of the 2 big level difference, and even against participant 7, Gary, and participant 8, only a very small chance. As Alex thought, he suddenly saw a person he recognized walking towards him. It was Freya, who came to him with a small smile. "Hello, Mr. Wonderboy. I'm happy to finally be able to talk to you." Alex, who doesn't remember having such a nickname, had a slightly confused expression as he said, "Is that a new nickname? When did I get this one?" Freya looked at Alex for a few seconds and said, "You are really a curious person." Almost immediately after that, she started smiling. "But, to answer your question, that's not your nickname. I only use it because I like it. Doesn't it fit well for someone who has achieved something that many called impossible?" Alex just smiled when he thought of his record. "It's not a bad nickname, but not really to my liking." Freya's eyes showed curiousness, as she said, "Can you tell me why you are thinking that?" "Because I'm a man, ha ha." Alex started laughing at his own strange joke. Freya just smiled and doesn't even pretend that she thinks that Alex's joke is funny. Tell me, would you like to take part in the live broadcast as a guest for 30 or 60 minutes? I think the viewers would find you very interesting. Alex looked slightly surprised. Oh, I would never have thought that the biggest channel in all of Kanto chooses so loosely its guests. Freya just laughed slightly. Not the channel but me. So what do you say? Alex looked at Freya and said with a relaxed smile, why not? Chapter 326. In an underground base in Saffron City, there was a room that was particularly large and luxuriously furnished. There were several very expensive pieces of jewelry on the wall, and even the furniture in this room was made with only the finest wood and enriched with many beautiful gemstones. In addition, the huge room had many high-quality electrical devices and even a huge TV on the wall, which worked without any problems even in this below-ground base. In this large, luxurious room, two young adults sit in their chairs and watch the TV that was in the room. The young man sitting on the right had short black hair and a muscular body. He almost looked like a perfect handsome man if he didn't have those eagle-like eyes that made him look very dangerous. But even with those dangerous-looking eyes, this young man was very popular among the opposite sex. The other young man was very tall for his age and almost 2 meters tall, even though he was under 18 years old. But he was not only tall but also relatively wide. He had a big belly, broad shoulders, and very muscular arms that didn't match his face at all. The face of this man could almost perfectly be described with the words baby face. Both young men were eyeing the big TV, which was showing a fight between Alex and Misty. After the big man saw that Misty had given up and lost her fight to Alex, he said, Marco, it looks like you're not going to be able to get the Hoenn position that easily. Marco looked at the tall man with his eagle-like eyes, when he said, Leroy, you're really lucky to be a good friend of mine, or a different boss wouldn't take your nonsense. Leroy flashed a smile as he said, Hey, be delighted you have such a good friend. Especially if you look at everyone with those eyes, don't be surprised if you only have me as a friend left. Marco's eyes twitched a bit. You really are a blessing. Leroy ignored the sarcastic tone of his friend/boss when he said, I know. Marco took a deep breath and said, I can't believe you found a girl who put up with you. I thought you'd be single for the rest of your life. That's a miracle in itself if you ask me. Leroy just smiled when he got this compliment from his friend. Marco looked back at the TV and started to show a serious expression. But you're right that Alex could become a significant problem. Leroy showed a very curious expression when he asked, Why? You're stronger than him. Marco looked at Leroy's face, and when he saw that Leroy was serious about his question, he just said quietly, I don't understand why such a smart person as you is too lazy to think about something like that yourself. Leroy started smiling as he said, I want to know what you think. I know you've already done your analysis of all your competitors. Come on, say it already. Marco breathed deeply again and said, in short, this Alex is a ridiculous monster. Not only does he level up ridiculously fast, but he has a ridiculous talent for tactics and even has a former competitor as a team member. You can say he has the strongest subordinate in this test. Leroy started flexing his biceps as he said to Marco, don't forget who you have on your team. Marco started to smile a little and found it a bit funny, even though he said coldly, wish I could. Leroy ignored Marco and continued to flex his biceps as he watched himself in a mirror. I think I'm beginning to understand how such a lazy person like Leroy managed to train such two big upper arms. Didn't think pride was stronger than sloth, Marco thought to himself as he saw Leroy observing himself in the mirror. After a few more moments, Leroy stopped looking at himself in the mirror and started talking to Marco again. Marco, don't worry. I will carry you to victory. Marco just looked at Leroy with a blank face and continued to watch the TV. Leroy just smiled and started to ask, but I'm a bit surprised that Giovanni even gave Alex a chance to take part in this trial. Marco said casually, you don't understand Giovanni. He doesn't give a damn that Alex doesn't have a trusted association with Team Rocket. Usually, Team Rocket member in high position thinks Jasmine and Marco both have parents who have a very high position in Team Rocket and are therefore very trustworthy. Or at least more trustworthy than other members. But Giovanni hardly cared how loyal or strong the parents of Team Rocket members are. He places great value in individuality and judges almost only his members in that way. Marco understands this very well as a nephew of Giovanni. Leroy flashed an encouraging smile as he noticed Marco's mood deteriorating. I don't care either way. We're gonna win anyway. Especially when everything goes according to plan. Marco's eagle-like eyes gazed at the image of Alex on the TV with a gaze similar to that of a predator watching its prey. He didn't say anything and was deep in thought as the replay of Alex's win appeared on the TV. Chapter 328, Alex followed Freya into a large studio that was in an enormous compartment in this arena. There are several individuals, 2 movable cameras, a large backdrop, and good lighting. In addition to this recording space, the control and technical enclosures are also part of this big compartment. This view reminded Alex a bit of film studios, from which he often had seen photos on the internet. Even if it's not nearly as big or extensive as the studio of a film studio. He saw Professor Walter and Erica getting up from their seatings in the backdrop to greet him. Professor Walter greeted Alex with a hug as he said, "Alex, what a nice surprise. I didn't know you were in the program today. Why didn't you say anything?" Alex just flashes a small smile as he says, "Just found out myself a few minutes ago." Professor Walter showed a happy expression. "It's nice to see you in person again. Although we speak regularly, it's been a long time since we've talked face to face. Haha, it's really a good chance to talk a little again. Especially because I rarely have time this year." Erica showed a soft smile and started to join the conversation. "Nice to see you again, Trainer Alex. I'm really happy to be able to talk to such a talented trainer again." Alex listened to the extremely kind words and smiled warmly with a stiff smile. He still couldn't believe that such a wholesome person existed. Although he likes Erica's personality, he felt very unfamiliar with such an individual. She was just too wholesome to be a real person and even carries more resemblance to extremely friendly Pokemon than to a human. He would even believe it if Erica had only said something mean once or twice in her life, and after she said something like this, she immediately regretted it. Erica looked at Alex with a curious expression. "Trainer Alex, you must have used a lot of time to be able to level your Pokemon that fast, right? If you don't mind, I'm a bit curious. Can you please tell me how much time you train per day?" Alex can understand that many trainers are very impressed with his fast level-up speed and are very curious about it. "Don't worry, Erica, you're not asking anything important. I train every day as long as I can without physically overtaxing my Pokemon or mentally exhausting them. You can say, I train as much as I can." Professor Walter flashed a smile. "I can see that. Only a madman can level his Pokemon that fast. I'm even sure you train them a lot in dangerous areas or you wouldn't level that fast." Freya interrupted the conversation when it wasn't long before the program started. She explained several things to Alex. What he should please avoid during the program and also that he should take it easy. After just another 10 minutes everything was ready and the program started. Alex saw together with Professor Walter and Erica on a large couch that had enough space for 10 people. The program starts and Freya looks at the main camera with a smile. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the pre-program for this year's Kanto Champion Tournament. I'm Freya Allen, the host of this beautiful program. We don't have only 2 well-known experts today, but 1 competitor as a guest as well. We have today a very special program for the audience prepared." She then looked towards Alex and said with a smile, "Welcome, Alex. I'm glad you could come." Alex flashed a small smile as he said, "Thanks for inviting me. I'm glad to finally be able to participate on a show in person and not like usually, with a clip of me, where I'm talking nonsense that is shown in a program." Freya started to smile slightly as she said, "Although the last time was very entertaining, I hope you don't want to confuse your competitors with such a tactic again today. Don't worry. A trick like that doesn't work twice. No matter what I say today, nobody will believe it or underestimate me because of it." Freya then began to welcome Erica and Professor Walter and she exchanged a few sentences with them too. After the greetings, Freya immediately started to ask Alex an interesting question. Alex, you are already a top 32 participant and only one round away from making it to the round of 16. Can you tell me and the viewers how far you think you can get in this tournament? Alex, who was already expecting such a question, said with a relaxed expression, "It depends on which opponent I get in my next round. It's a bit sad, but I have to hope for luck to make it far in this tournament, and with bad luck, I will be eliminated in the next round." Freya looked at Alex and said with a smile, "Maybe I can assist you to find out if you're lucky. I got the information from Studio, a minute ago, who your next opponent is. I'm sure the viewers would also like to know who, from the top 16 participants, is your opponent." After she said that, an image of the information of Alex's next opponent was shown on the broadcast. Alex could see that image on a screen in the studio and he thought with a slightly indifferent expression, "Not bad. Even if that's not exactly lucky." Chapter 329, Alex showed a relatively satisfied expression when he saw the info from his next opponent. He is the 4th weakest opponent he can get. Even if he thinks his opponent is stronger than his number displays. Because it's a 3 versus 3 fight, is this opponent with 1 or 2 high-level Pokemon a problematic opponent and maybe even harder to beat than an opponent with a participant number of 11 or 10. But Alex was still relatively satisfied with the opponent he got. He didn't have to fight one of the top 6 who he didn't stand a chance against. That alone made Alex happy. Freya looked at Alex's expression and said with a smile, "Are you happy with your opponent?" Alex just looked at Freya with a smile and didn't say anything for 3 seconds. He just looked at Freya. His expression looked to Freya as if Alex were saying, "I see what you were trying to do." Just when Freya thought that Alex didn't want to answer this question anymore, Alex suddenly said with a slight smile, "It's not my ideal opponent, if that's what you mean." Freya showed a curious expression as she said, "Oh, if I may ask, who is your desired opponent?" Alex flashed a huge smile as he said, "Gary Oak." Freya, Erica, and Professor Walter all showed a surprised expression when they heard Alex want to fight. No one thought that Alex would want to fight such a strong trainer. As Professor Oak's grandson, Gary Oak is extremely famous, and ever since he became a Pokemon trainer, he has been dubbed the title as the second Professor Oak. This title showed how high his talent is rated by all experts and normal trainers. Freya, who felt that this topic was becoming very interesting, quickly asked, "Why do you want to fight such a strong trainer in the second round?" Alex just gave a soft smile as he said his answer. Even though there was nothing soft about his answer. His reputation is stronger than he really is. "I want to defeat him through my sheer skill and show all people that he's nothing special." Alex doesn't really believe the words he just said. He doesn't know how talented Gary Oak is in this world. Alex just said those words to get a beatable opponent for the round of 16. After Alex's next fight there will only be 16 participants in this tournament left, and because the top 8 cannot fight each other in the next round, means that Alex will get next an opponent from the top 8 participants. Of the top 8 competitors that Alex can get as an opponent, only Gary and Gideon are beatable. Even though Alex's chances are extremely bad even against these two. Alex was very sure that the tournament organizers were planning matches that would interest viewers, or he wouldn't fight Misty in the first round. He wants to use this show to manipulate who his next opponent becomes. As long as he can hype a match, he can influence who becomes his next opponent. Or at least increase the chance to fight against this opponent. Gideon is probably an easier opponent than Gary, but with Gideon as his opponent, it's a lot harder to build hype. He's not even popular as Alex. This fight isn't nearly as interesting as the fight between two very talented young trainers. Freya gave an expression of disbelief as she looked at Alex. She then flashed a smile as she said, "Trainer Alex, is that another of your tactics to confuse your opponent?" Alex has a serious expression as he replies, "No, I'm serious. As I said at the beginning of this show, none of my opponents will believe a word I say on this show and will fight me to their fullest strength. Or at least, I think so." Freya shows a slightly confused expression when she sees Alex's serious expression. "But why are you saying that when you know it won't change anything?" Alex smiles upon hearing this question. It's very simple. I want Gary Ork to give his all in his fight against me in case we should fight each other in the next round. But even if he uses his full strength and his Pokemon are much higher level than mine, he still has not a good chance against me. Alex continued to smile softly as he said the arrogant words. I even hope that Gary tries even harder than usual. That would make my win look even better. Freya, Erica, and even Professor Walter were all a bit puzzled why Alex suddenly said such arrogant words. Neither believed that Gary would be influenced by Alex's words or that this tactic would help Alex in his fight. It could even be a disadvantage if his opponent made an extra effort against Alex for saying those words. None of the three believed that Alex didn't know that and would make such an obvious mistake. The three of them were very confused as to why Alex unexpectedly used such a pointless provocation. Professor Walter looked at Alex and said with a slightly confused expression, Alex, do you have a personal problem with Gary? Alex didn't say anything for a few seconds. Like, he doesn't want to answer this question. Although Alex's expression is emotionless, he was actually very happy that Professor Walter had asked such a question. Freya, who noticed that the situation was getting a bit cold, started to change the subject. Dear viewers, we now have a complete list of all 16 fights. I think we will see many interesting fights in the next round. When Freya said that, the program started showing the info of every individual fight. Alex, suddenly seeing the info from a participant, gave a slightly surprised expression. What? Chapter 329 Part 2. Alex didn't understand for a few seconds why suddenly Ash is in this tournament. Although there are 2 separate waiting rooms for all participants in this tournament, all participants were present at the welcome ceremony, so it was possible for Alex to see Ash before this match. It wasn't hard to miss Ash when Alex was in the welcome ceremony with all 63 other participants, but he still felt a bit confused. Alex can't imagine that he would overlook a trainer like Ash. That name and his Pokemon, it can only be that Ash. Although this Ash should be very different than the Ash in the anime, thought Alex with a thoughtful expression. Alex knew that Ash and Gary were fighting in the anime, but that happened in a tournament in Johto. This Ash also didn't have Misty or Brock as his companions, and his team is extremely strange. He doesn't think it's anything special that Pikachu isn't stronger than Charizard and isn't the strongest of all of Ash's Pokemon. At the beginning of Ash's journey, Charizard was Ash's strongest Pokemon, and only later did Pikachu start to become Ash's trump card. The problem was that all of Ash's team's Pokemon all have such high levels and that it's not a level that can be reached quickly. The more Alex of Ash and his team think, the bigger the confusion he had. Especially when he wanted to estimate how good the potential of Pikachu probably is with the help of the anime. He couldn't estimate it at all because of all those weird fights that Pikachu had. In some battles, Pikachu is strong enough to win against legendary Pokemon, but in other battles, Pikachu is defeated by a Pokemon that is extremely weak. The more Alex thinks about it, the more confused he became. Ash is simply connected to too many illogical aspects in the anime for him to be able to find meaningful information from the anime. The past won't help me judge Ash's strength or his Pokemon. It doesn't make any sense and I'll have to see for myself how strong or talented Ash's team is, thought Alex. Freya started talking about several interesting fights and occasionally asked Alex, Erica, and Professor Walter what they thought about it. Alex stayed in the show for another 60 minutes before the program went into a short 15 minutes break. Freya knew Alex had to fight his next opponent in an hour and said with a smile, Alex, thanks a lot for being on the show. You were one of the most interesting guests I've had in a long time. Alex shakes hands with Freya and says with a smile, do you say that to all the guests? Freya flashed a small smile and didn't answer Alex's question. Alex just shook his head slightly with a small smile, as he said I felt used. Afterward, he showed a serious expression and said, but I had a good time here and it was an interesting experience, so thanks for the invitation. Freya laughed lightly and said, hee hee, you have a good sense of humor for such a serious person. I hope we'll be able to record a show like this together again soon. After saying that, she gave Alex her contact information with a smile and walked back to the studio. Erica and Professor Walter also talked to Alex a little before Alex leaves. When Alex got back to the waiting room, he started opening his TRH device and it showed that he had received several new messages. All messages came from Steven or Maria. Wow, that was so embarrassing when you said you could easily beat Gary Oak. I don't know if that was just because I knew that you were talking rubbish, but your words sounded so embarrassing to me. I've already begun to be ashamed of you as you said it. I wanted to ask one more thing. Why did you say this? What was your tactical reason for provoking Gary Oak like that? Alex looks at Steven's messages first and regretted it almost immediately to open it first. He flashed a smile and began to give Steven his answers. Why are you such a bum today? Is it because you still haven't found a female person besides your mother who wants to touch you? Steven replied almost immediately. I'm just joking. Don't cry right now. Alex displayed a small smile as he replied to Steven. Have you noticed that you are becoming more and more like me? Steven didn't reply for a moment before sending Alex a new message. Low blow. Alex knew stopped texting Steven and opened the messages from Myra. Why do you look so much better on TV than you do in real life? Is that the makeup? Can you tell me what products you used? Hey, why are you looking at that bitch's body? That bitch, Freya, doesn't look nearly as good as me and only has big cow tits. Stop looking! Don't think, I didn't see where you've wandered with your eyes. Bastard. You are such an unfaithful piece of shit. Alex looked a bit speechless at Maria's messages. He doesn't remember a moment when Maria got so angry as she is now. She was really angry. Fuck, I thought I did it discreetly. Normally Maria isn't often angry and only her words are a bit harsh. But Alex noticed that this time Maria is really a bit angry. Chapter 330, he thought about what best to say for a few seconds. Mary, I would never cheat on you. Please don't worry. When Alex thought he had sent a good reply, he saw Maria's new message and realized that his message didn't seem to be that good. You arrogant bastard. Please don't worry. Fuck you. How would you feel if you saw me on a show with a handsome man and I kept looking at that man's ass and upper body? When Alex saw the word ass, he started to worry a little about what parts of the body Maria found attractive on man. But when he thought about Maria's question, he started to imagine such a situation and he had to admit that he would be angry too at her if she did that. Alex didn't know what to do now that he was in this situation. He had other girlfriends in his other lives, but because he didn't care about all his girlfriends, he always ignored each of his girlfriends when they got mad at him. Even if they left him, it hardly bothered him. He hadn't developed any emotional connections with these women. But with Maria, it's completely different. He really valued Maria and didn't want her to be unhappy in this relationship. In this situation, Alex was a complete beginner and didn't know what to do to stop Maria from being angry at him. Alex also had a very big ego and he didn't really want to apologize even though he knew it was his fault. He really did wander with his eyes, now and then on the show. But Alex only sees Freya as eye candy and he did not plan to cheat on Maria. The problem was that he didn't want Maria to do something like that too, so he had to admit that this behavior was really wrong or that Maria could do it too. Fuck, why is that so hard? After thinking about it for several minutes, Alex knew that this time he needed to get his ego under control and apologize to Maria. Although it is not very difficult for normal people to apologize to a person when they think that they did something wrong, it is extremely difficult for Alex. Alex can't even remember the last time he sincerely apologized to someone. Maria, you are right. I would have been mad too at you if you did something like this. I am sorry. When Alex thought that Maria would continue to insult him and be still angry at him, he got a completely different response from Maria. I love you too, you bastard. Alex flashes a sunny smile and he feels that Maria is really cute at such moments. Didn't think an arrogant bastard like you would apologize to me. I just wanted to squeeze some gifts from you. Well, what I got isn't bad either. Alex's right eye twitched slightly as he told himself, she's just kidding. Don't let it provoke you. You ruin the mood. Moan about it. After reading this message, he knew that Maria wasn't angry at him anymore and that this matter was over. That was one of the qualities that he valued in Maria. She's very forthright and he didn't have to guess when she was mad at him or what she wanted from him. Not that he's any good at finding out what women think. Alex started thinking about his next opponent and what Pokemon he would use against him. He also thought about several fitting strategies. He looked at a large TV in the waiting room and saw again the information of his next opponents displayed along with the other fights. Participant 13, Ezra. Pokemon, Venomoth LV50, Pinsir LV50, Scyther LV51, Pinsir LV51, Butterfree LV52, Heracross LV54. Alex thought with a serious look on his face, Crobat definitely needs to be on the team. He is the perfect Pokemon against Heracross. Crobat takes little damage from bug and fight-type moves and had 4x resistances. Apart from that, his flying-type attacks do 4x damage against Heracross. Blaziken should also be in the team. Her attack strength with a Master Rank Fire-type move is too good to reject. Alex started thinking about which 3 Pokemon he should pick. He was thinking about 2 different Pokemon, Scyther and Bastiodon. But after considering the pros and cons of both Pokemon, he made his decision. He planned on choosing Bastiodon as his 3rd Pokemon. Although it was a close call where both Pokemon have an advantage, he prefers Bastiodon. Although Bastiodon was very weak against Heracross, it was very useful against all other Pokemon, even against Pinsir, with who he has maybe little problems. Especially against Ezra's 2 strongest Pokemon. Butterfree, is Bastiodon almost an unstoppable monster. Ironically, the main reason Bastiodon was chosen over Scyther is his offense. Flamethrower, on the Master rank, was extremely useful, and combined with Rock Slide, on the Expert rank, Bastiodon was very strong against Urza's team. After Alex chose his team, he started telling his 3 Pokemon many different tactics to use against Ezra's team. Although Alex didn't know the detailed information of his opponent's team, his strength did not completely depend on his system. It was more of a buff that improves his tactical strength and not half as effective without a good user. An hour later, a staff member came up to Alex and informed him that his next fight was about to start and asked whether he was ready to start. Alex nodded and he followed the staff member, who led him to arena. The staff member lets Alex enter the arena alone and waits in front of the entry. When Alex entered the stadium, he heard again applause and screams from the spectators. He already saw his opponent and a referee standing in his place, and everything was ready to start the fight. Am I imagining it, or is the more famous trainer the last one to enter the arena? Thought Alex with a short smile. Chapter 331, the referee signaled Alex and Ezra to call out their first Pokemon at the same time. A Blaziken and a Butterfree appeared in the stadium at the same time. Alex had long thought about which Pokemon he wanted to start the battle with against Ezra. Because each Pokemon can only be switched once in each match, Alex decided against choosing Crobat as his first Pokemon in this match. He intended to save Crobat until his opponent showed Heracross, or he will have a real problem later against this Heracross without Crobat. Alex looked with a serious expression at the information from Butterfree. Alex, who knew that his opponent was around 25 years old, isn't surprised that such a trainer's Pokemon has multiple Master Rank moves. That's almost to be expected against Pokemon with such a high level. But when he saw how this Butterfree had a move like Quiver Dance as an innate talent move, he couldn't help but be a bit surprised. Quiver Dance is probably one of the most broken moves a bug-type Pokemon can learn, and it's even stronger in this world than it is in the games. The main reason is that the speed stat is extremely useful in real fights and makes many moves useless with enough quickness. Although there are moves that hit quick Pokemon no matter how fast they are, it is still many times more important in this world than it is in the games. 3, 2, 1, go! After the referee had started the match, both trainers immediately started giving their first order. Butterfree use Quiver Dance plus Stun Spore. A 1. As always, Alex had given Blaziken a starting strategy before this fight so that she could immediately prepare her new move without Alex's orders. But Alex immediately gave an order at the start of the fight which caused Blaziken to interrupt her first move, sunny day, and then she started preparing the move A1. That was the biggest disadvantage of this tactic. If you order your Pokemon to prepare a move but change your mind later in the fight, it will lose more time than when you give normally a move. It wastes a bit of time because the Pokemon has to cancel the first move before it can start preparing the new move. In the end, the Pokemon loses more preparation time if you change your mind at the start of the fight. But Alex showed an indifferent expression as he wasted a bit of time. He had long known this was the case, but that didn't change his mindset towards this tactic. A double-edged sword isn't inherently bad as long as you know it can hurt you. It was a pity that he wasn't allowed to command his Pokemon after both Pokemon were summoned to the arena, or he would have commanded his Pokemon before the start of the match. Alex had also considered trying to bypass this rule and cheat with telepathy or other signals, but he decided against it. It wasn't worth it. If he was caught for breaking this rule, he would lose the chance of getting his prizes and his reputation would take a hit. Although Blaziken started preparing for her move a bit later as Butterfree, she finished first her move. Alex flashed a smile as he thought, haha, preparing 2 moves immediately is a bit brave and is not without drawbacks. Blaziken's entire body emits a pink aura and she flashes a mischievous smile to Butterfree. She used Attract, and Butterfree immediately put on a stunned expression. Butterfree looked at Blaziken's body with a paralyzed expression and he even forgot to continue to prepare his 2 moves. The 2 moves that weren't fully prepared were both cancelled. Immediately after the hit, Alex gave his next order. Blaziken, go on with the original plan. Ezra gave an expression of bewilderment as he suddenly said loudly, "AHH, what? Butterfree, wake up! Stop it!" Alex just gave a smile as he thought that a master rank, Attract, isn't a joke against Pokemon of the opposite sex. This move was effective against Butterfree, even with Blaziken having a small level disadvantage. Blaziken finished preparing her next move and she immediately used the move, Sunny Day, which caused the temperature in the whole arena to rise sharply. Ezra is still trying to wake up his Pokemon and it's only when Blaziken is half done with her new move that Butterfree wakes up from his condition. Butterfree use Quiver Dance and run away from Blaziken. Also, try to dodge Blaziken's next move. Alex showed a serious expression as he said, Blaziken, follow it. Blaziken was faster than Butterfree and Butterfree didn't manage to distance himself from Blaziken. Although both Pokemon should about have the same speed, because of the level difference, Blaziken is faster because she had the hidden ability, Speed Boost. Blaziken finished with her next move and she uses Rock Slide. Butterfree tried to dodge but couldn't and took a lot of damage. She lost about half her HP despite being 3 levels higher than Blaziken. Butterfree's poor HP and terrible defense, along with an expert rank move with quadruple damage, caused Butterfree to take so much damage. Ezra gave an expression of slight confusion and thought, why did Blaziken use Sunny Day and immediately afterward Rock Slide? What is this idiot doing? Anyway, I have to do something quickly or Butterfree will lose. He activated his Pokeball immediately and called Butterfree back without giving Alex time to react. The referee said aloud, Participant Ezra makes a successful switch. He then looked at Ezra when the referee said, you have 30 seconds to switch to a different Pokemon. Chapter 332, Alex showed a satisfied expression as he saw that he has a perfect opening against his opponent. Although Blaziken has a very strong offensive power against Butterfree, it wasn't normal for her to win this exchange against a Pokemon with a 3-level advantage. Although her Rock Slide on the expert rank does ridiculous damage against Butterfree, it's not like that Butterfree doesn't stand a good chance against Blaziken. If Butterfree had used Attack 2 moves, Psychic, plus Hyper Beam, he could have defeated Blaziken in 2 moves. The main reason is of course the 3-level difference that balances out the species disadvantage and type disadvantage from Butterfree. Ezra puts on a serious expression as he reflects on what a terrible start he's had. Not only did he use up 1 substitution, but his second strongest Pokemon has already lost half of his HP without damaging the enemy. This could only have happened because his opponent had completely outplayed him and was his own incompetence that it happened. That thought made his mood even worse than it already was. Ezra thought with an annoyed expression, I guess it's time for my trump card. Fuck, this monster has the ability, Moxie? Is this a joke? Thought Alex with a surprised expression. His original plan was to have Blaziken fighting her across and damage it as much as possible with Overheat and Flamethrower, while Sunny Day boosts her moves. But Alex didn't feel like Blaziken would ever survive one Earthquake and only do boost her across against Crobat. The referee started the fight again. 3, 2, 1, go. Alex immediately called his Blaziken back to her Pokeball. The referee said aloud, Participant Alex makes a successful switch. Ezra and many spectators showed a puzzled expressions. Many couldn't understand why Alex changed his only Fire-type Pokemon even though it's still under the buff of Sunny Day, and Blaziken didn't have a type disadvantage against Heracross. It made absolutely no sense and many even though it was a complete mistake. Ezra began to show a serious expression as he thought, does he know that my Heracross can do the Earthquake move on the Master rank? But how does he know that? I haven't shown it in this tournament yet. It makes no sense. Alex didn't wait long and called Crobat from his Pokeball. 3, 2, 1, go. The referee started the fight and both trainers showed serious expression. Heracross use Rock Slide. Crobat immediately started preparing his move without Alex saying anything. He flew higher and higher, out of range of Heracross, as he prepared his first move. Heracross, who had a lot of combat experience, noticed that Crobat doesn't get hit with his Rock Slide anymore and don't use this move immediately after it's done. It was out of reach for this move. Crobat, who had ascended high enough, stopped flying up and began descending onto Heracross with a ridiculous momentum. Ezra knew that Heracross had a good chance to use Rock Slide after Crobat attacked him, so he didn't say anything, waited, and look how Heracross endures this attack. He knew Crobat was too fast in that dive to get hit by that move, so he waited. Heracross was hit by Crobat, who was completely enveloped in flying-type energy and was launched several meters away with the momentum from Crobat. But even though Heracross lost about 40% of his HP, he endures it and immediately used Rock Slide. Alex flashed a smile and watched as Crobat flew over Heracross's head as it prepared a new move and dodged as many of Rock Slide's rocks as it could. Heracross gave a surprised expression when his opponent Crobat didn't run away but hovered directly over his head. Crobat was hit by many rocks, but Heracross, who was under Crobat, took about the same number of hits. He was wounded by his own attack and his body showed more and more wounds. But Crobat was also hit and lost 60% of his HP from this move alone. He takes much more damage than Heracross because of the level difference. But despite the injury, Crobat prepares its next move as it flies back up into the air to repeat the same action. Heracross use Rock Slide again. Heracross, unable to stop Crobat, could only watch as Crobat flew out of his attack range again. That's why there are rules in this tournament that don't allow flying-type Pokemon to fly that high while you're not using moves like Fly. It should prevent the flying-type Pokemon from flying 100 meters in the air and using moves like Aerial Ace or Swift. Crobat finished and he used Fly again as he dived towards Heracross. Again Heracross could not dodge this speedy attack and his whole body displayed many wounds. Protect. Heracross quickly used Rock Slide and then immediately Endure. Crobat hovered directly over Heracross's head, but this time he used Protect, and although his shield couldn't block all of the damage, he managed to block most of the damage. Endure, like Quick Attack, was a move that requires little preparation time but cannot be used again immediately after it is used. It also cannot block all damage in this world and depends on the remaining HP, the strength of the attack move, move mastery, and the level difference between attackers and defenders to be able to decide whether it can be used successfully. Alex realized that the fight was approaching an important moment and he started to look very serious. He had the feeling that this moment would decide this fight. Chapter 333, Alex saw how both Pokemon have hardly any HP left and that almost every next move can end the fight. He said quickly, Crobat, H5. Ezra flashed a smile as he said, Heracross use, Megahorn. Alex showed a calm expression as Heracross quickly prepared a Master Rank move. Although Megahorn on the Master Rank finishes faster than any other move Crobat can, it doesn't matter, unless Heracross is within range. The H in H5 stands for hit and run, and the 5 for which move Crobat should prepare for while he is performing this hit and run action. Crobat is a bit faster than Heracross and can prevent him from getting in range immediately when he has Megahorn ready. When Alex thought that he had already won that fight, he saw how Heracross was faster than Crobat and that he was only a few meters away from Crobat. Alex looked at Crobat and immediately realized what the problem was. During the rock slide hits, Crobat's wings were badly injured and one even had a big hole in them. Without giving Crobat time, Heracross jumped 4 meters in the air while his horn emits a green aura. Heracross swung his horn at Crobat like a baseball bat and caused Crobat to fall unconscious to the ground. Alex goes to Crobat, who falls unconscious to the ground, to heal him quickly. He gave an apologetic look as he said, I'm sorry, Crobat. You fought well and only lost because of my mistake. He didn't just say that to cheer Crobat up. Alex believed what he said to Crobat. Alex realized that he was too distracted and noticed too late how his Pokemon is slower than before, due to an injury it suffered. He took a too technical view of this fight and didn't realize how various wounds on Crobat could affect his plans. It's usually extremely difficult to damage a Pokemon's body enough to make it weaker or slower unless it's unconscious. As long as a Pokemon's life energy is not fatigued, a Pokemon's body has to be extremely injured to be affected in the fight. A few bruises or bleeding are possible, but not something like losing body parts. But there is an exception. When the strength of both Pokemon is so different, it is possible to remove parts of a Pokemon's body or kill it directly without knocking it out first. Although Crobat has a 4-level disadvantage, Heracross isn't strong enough to be able to do something like this, so Alex didn't think about these things. But Crobat's wings are the most vulnerable part of Crobat, so Heracross, with its 4-level advantage and effective move, managed to inflict injury on Crobat's wings. Although Crobat could still fly, his speed was restricted, which led to this situation. Ezra, who was using this injury to his advantage, flashed a smile and said loudly, "Ha, and you're supposed to be good at tactics." What a joke! Alex called Crobat back to his Pokeball and looked at Ezra, who was suddenly talking to her. He showed an indifferent expression as he said, "Oh, you're one of those. You shut up all the time, but as soon as your opponent has a weak moment you act like you're better. That's pathetic." Ezra looked coldly at Alex and said, "Get your next pathetic Pokemon out, so I can show you which one of us is truly pathetic." The referee looked at the two and began to warn both of them. He doesn't want to hear any more insults or he will take action. After saying that, he looked at Alex and said to him to call his next Pokemon in 30 seconds. Alex didn't wait long and called Blaziken. The referee starts the fight with a serious expression. 3, 2, 1, go. Alex said lightly, "Quick attack." Ezra, Revere. Wait, what? Quickly use Protect. Without allowing Heracross or Ezra to react, use Blaziken, Quick Attack, and ram Heracross with her body as it is encased in normal-type energy. Heracross fell to the ground unconscious and Ezra looked serious. He knew that this situation was extremely bad for him. His strongest Pokemon is defeated and his second strongest Pokemon has only 50% HP left. Without wasting any more time, Ezra called Butterfree back onto the battlefield. 3, 2, 1, go. 01. Butterfree used Psychic and looked at the floor. Alex flashed a smile when he saw what move his opponent was about to use. He still felt the warmth of sunny day on the battlefield, and now that his opponent had no chance to defend against Blaziken's next move, Alex knows he won a perfect chance to win this fight. Blaziken finished first and used her strongest move without giving Butterfree a chance to dodge. Overheat hit Butterfree, who was trying to dodge it, and Butterfree immediately fell to the ground unconscious. It was complete overkill. Even if Butterfree tried to stay awake with willpower alone, he wouldn't be able to cope with the damage his body had taken and still fall unconscious to the ground. Ezra stared at Blaziken, speechless, feeling like this was all a joke. His two strongest Pokemon were defeated and his opponent only lost one Pokemon, while the other two Pokemon don't take any damage. Ezra had a ridiculous level advantage but couldn't even exchange 1v1 Pokemon against Alex. He healed his Pokemon and left the arena without saying a word to Alex or the referee. As the referee warns that he will be disqualified if he tried to leave this arena, Alex looked at Ezra's back with a small smile. He thought with a slightly satisfied expression, although you are quite weak, I could still learn a bit from you. The referee said aloud, Participant Ezra is disqualified. Participant Alex is the winner of this round. Chapter 334, Freya said loudly into her mic, Incredible, Participant Alex defeated another of Ezra's Pokemon without his Scizor taking any damage at all. What an incredible combo of strength and intelligence. What, Participant Ezra left the arena without a word and he was disqualified by the referee. While I can understand why he's doing this, it's a bit disappointing. We can hear the spectators in the stadium booing Ezra as he exits the stadium. It seems that the spectators are not satisfied with these results either. Professor Walder also showed a slightly disappointed expression when he said, It's really a bit disappointed that contestant Ezra gave up so early. Even though it will become a 2v1 Pokemon battle, it's not impossible for him to win it. Erica said in a light tone, I can understand that many are disappointed with Ezra, but I still can understand why he does that. His two strongest Pokemon were defeated and only his strongest Pokemon, which was level 54, could match one of Alex's Pokemon. His chances of winning this fight were extremely slim if he even had one. I don't think Ezra deserved that harsh criticism. Professor Walder flashed a small smile as he said, You're just too nice to Ezra, Erica. While I agree that participant Ezra didn't really stand a good chance of winning this fight, he shouldn't give up right away. He hasn't that great of a disadvantage that he cannot compensate it with good tactics. Erica showed a serious expression. But he doesn't deserve that treatment. He's already taken a lot of mental damage from Alex in this match. The last thing he needs is more people beating him down. Freya and Professor Walder showed a surprised expression when they saw the expression on Erica's face. Erica always has a soft and friendly expression, so both are surprised when she shows such a serious expression. Erica started saying to the camera, I would ask the viewers not to further humiliate Ezra, but to praise Alex for his impressive performance. Ezra didn't make any big mistakes and just looked bad because he was fighting Alex. As someone who has also fought against Alex, I can tell the viewers with certainty that, tactically, he is the strongest trainer of his generation. Freya thought with a surprised expression she's purposely deflecting the topic so that Ezra doesn't get further shamed in this show and so that his reputation doesn't suffer any further damage. She even makes it look normal by putting herself in the Arc of Fire. How can someone be so nice? Professor Walder started showing a slight smile as he said, Erica, you're right. Alex had put in an unusual performance and Ezra really didn't have a bad fight. He made a few mistakes, but against an opponent like Alex it's easy to make more mistakes. Erica's serious expression suddenly turned shy as she replied, Professor Walder. I'm sorry about that. I didn't want to put anyone down. Your criticism is fair, but Professor Walder started to laugh slightly as he said, Haha, it's okay Erica. You don't need to apologize, I'm not that sensitive. Haha. Freya flashed a slight smile and she started to change the subject, but I'm impressed with competitor Alex. He was in total control the whole fight. Professor Walder said, he really is a special trainer that you seldom see. As far as I know, he didn't even have a person to help him or a teacher, but he's already fighting better than most elite trainers without even half as much experience as them. Truly a monster. Erica showed an expression of admiration, as she said, I can only agree. Especially after seeing his fight against Lieutenant Surge. I can only describe Alex as an abnormal genius. Freya said with a smile, it seems that Alex has already had the admiration of both of my co-commentators. Although I have to say, I'm also impressed. Alex is truly a master of tactics. Erica said with a gentle smile, Master of tactics? It sounds better than the nickname Monster. Hee hee, although both fit. Professor Walder said with a playful smile, Master of tactics, I like it. I hope Alex will be happy about the new nickname that was given to him today. Haha. Freya said, Professor Walder, the next match starts in 1 minute, so let's talk about it later. Although I'd like to continue talking about it, we still have a show to do. Alex, who was sitting in his hotel room with his Pokemon, looked at the TV with a serious expression. And so we now only 16 participants left, who will continue to fight tomorrow. Freya then said with a smile for the camera, but we have one more thing that the viewers will like. We already got all 8 fights for tomorrow from the studio, and I won't reserve it from the dear viewers. After she said that, an image of the 8 fights appeared on Alex's TV. Alex looked at these 8 different fights but was only interested in 2. Alex thinks that all the other fights except for these 2 fights are fully predictable and already have a winner. None of the top 6 participants would have a problem defeating their opponent. The level disadvantage is just too big, and Alex didn't believe that these fights would be even remotely close. Even his fight is the second easiest fight to win, though his fight is extremely difficult for Alex to win and almost impossible for other trainers to win. The main reason Crobat was able to exchange 1-for-1 against Heracross is that Crobat had an almost perfect type advantage against Heracross and Alex used it optimally. Against Blastoise, which is even 1 level higher than Heracross, Alex doesn't have even one Pokemon that has a type advantage. Let alone, an almost perfect type advantage as Crobat had against Heracross. Except that each of Gary's Pokemon also has a level advantage over each of Alex's Pokemon. Gary as an opponent just doesn't remotely compare to Ezra. Alex turned off the TV and he started thinking about his match against Gary. Chapter 335, Alex sat in his chair, as he considered various tactics and how best to increase his chances of winning in his next match. He suddenly noticed how his TRH device on the table next to him started to glow. Call me when you see this. Alex looked at his TRH device and he smiled when he saw this direct message from Maria. He began calling her, and after less than 5 seconds, Maria answered his call. Hey, Maria. Why are you calling me all of a sudden? Are you bored? I'm starting to believe that I'm your first girlfriend. Alex flashed a smile as he said, Haha, that's so mean. Then he said in a slightly serious tone, but I already told you, I only had one girlfriend in this life. Why are you saying it so weirdly? It sounds like you've lived more than once. Alex said in a non-serious tone, Oh no, you found out my secret. This is my second life, and in my second life, I had a harem. I was also immortal. Myra said nothing for a few seconds, and when Alex wanted to say another word, Maria ended the call. She didn't give him a chance and ended the call without saying a word. Alex thought with a smile, perhaps a bit too many jokes in a row? But I didn't think they were all that bad. At the same time, he writes a message to Maria. Why so touchy today? Alex. How old are you? 17. Why do I have such a retard as my boyfriend? Why do I have such a bitchy girlfriend? Alex was pretty sure that today is one of the days when Maria was in a bad mood and less tolerant of his jokes than usual. When he already thought that she will ignore him today, he heard how he got a call on his TRH device. Alex showed a slightly surprised expression and he took the call from Maria without much thinking. Although Maria's words were rude and he had a reason to be angry with her, if he want to find one, Alex is not that sensitive to getting angry when Maria is a bit rough. Apart from the fact that he wasn't exactly sociable to Maria himself. Alex knew his relationship with Maria was different than his previous ones. Neither attaches much importance to verbal words unless they are mean in a 100% serious way said. Alex doesn't even remember when they both seriously insulted each other. Alex put his TRH device to his ear and said with a smile, I thought my jokes weren't that bad. Maria rolled her eyes at that, Alex couldn't see that, and said in her usual tone, well, they weren't really bad. But you've had better jokes. Alex showed a curious expression as he said, really? You make me curious. What's my best joke? Maria said with a slightly happy tone. Oh, you're so curious? Too bad you teased your perfect girlfriend today and she suddenly doesn't feel like telling you the answer. Alex just looked at his TRH device and started thinking about whether he should have tried more to prevent Lisa and Laria from becoming friends. But almost immediately he dismissed that thought as he thought, no. Maria already had vicious traits before she met Lisa. Luckily she doesn't act like that during. Alex stopped thinking about some nonsense when he said, okay, Maria. What's up? Do you have something important to say to me or is this a normal chat? Maria showed a satisfied expression when she successfully teased Alex. Usually, Alex is the dominant person in their conversations and it's rarely the case where she can successfully overwhelm Alex. She flashed a warm smile as she said, I don't have anything special to say except. Good luck for tomorrow. Alex flashed a smile as he said, thanks. After a few seconds pause, Alex said, hey, why don't you come over here and we can? Maria immediately understood what Alex meant by these words. She thought for a few seconds if she should accept this invitation. Although she didn't mind having fun with Alex today, she knew that Alex didn't really have time today and she felt that it would be better for Alex if he had some time to think about his next fight today. Maria would never say that though. She just said in a cold tone, no. Alex showed a slightly disappointed expression. He had been thinking about different tactics for different situations for a couple of hours and he was feeling a bit exhausted. Maria said musing in a playful tone, oh, by the way, I watched the show after the fights. Did you know you have a new title now? Hee, Master of Tactics. Alex's right eye twitched slightly when he heard that title. He found these unnecessary titles that trainers are given so inappropriately. He tried to say in an indifferent tone, yes, I know about it. Maria only laughed for a few seconds and said pensively, you are so cute. Alex suppressed the urge to end the call to Maria. He was like, fuck, how does she know that I don't like that name? Did she recognize it from my tone? No, I'm usually a good liar. Fuck, that doesn't make any sense. He continued to say in an indifferent tone, you have so many mood swings today. Am I imagining it or is today your special day? Maria didn't let Alex provoke her and she said with a happy tone, nice try. But if you're trying to change the subject, don't make it so obvious. Not really, a master of tactics if you ask me. Alex started to find it funny as he continued talking to Maria. They both talked for another 30 minutes and although they made fun of each other the whole time, Alex and Maria had the whole span a smile on their faces as they talked to each other. Crobat, who heard the whole conversation, with his good ears, just looked at Alex as he said softly, human beings are really weird. Chapter 336. Alex slowly started to wake up when the alarm clock on his TRH device started playing loud music. He deactivated the alarm clock with a tired expression. Then, he started going to the bathroom and taking a shower, like he did every morning. Today was the day he was going to fight Gary Oak and although he thought that he had a chance to win this fight, he didn't think it was a very big chance. And maybe even only a very small chance. It was similar in difficulty to his first match against Misty. Probably even harder because Gary isn't as inexperienced as Misty was against him. The biggest problem was that he didn't have a good Pokemon that stood a chance against Gary's Blastoise in a 1v1 match. Alex understood that he would probably have to use 2 Pokemon just for this Blastoise. The problem is that Gary's other Pokemon are also very strong and Alex can't easily defeat them with one of his Pokemon. Even if he uses good strategies and type advantages. Objectively speaking, Alex had little chance of winning this match, and only if several of his risky plans worked out could he win this match. But Alex's eyes still showed eagerness as he thought about today's match. He didn't even care much if he wins or loses. Alex just wanted to see what he could do with his different tactics and give all of his Pokemon a good battle experience. Alex flashed a smile as he started preparing breakfast for him and his Pokemon. Alex and Gary were standing on the opposite side of the stadium. You could find the referee on the side of the battlefield explaining the rules for this round. The referee then looked at both of them and said, as you should know by now, if you both wanted and agreed you could make this into a match, where no Pokemon can be switched, instead of every Pokemon being able to switch once. Alex knew about this option before the start and showed a calm expression when he heard the referee's words. This tournament added this optional rule because it's more interesting to viewers if neither trainer can switch Pokemon. Starting from the round of 16, it is an additional option for every fight in this tournament. But this rule will only come into reality and be effective if both participants desire to fight in this format. Alex didn't really care, but when he saw that Gary nodded, as he heard the word of the referee, he felt it was the perfect chance to gain an advantage. Gary looked at Alex and said, "I'd rather have such an intense fight. What do you think?" Alex put on a false look of dislike when he said, "You want me to give up my tactical advantage without giving up anything yourself? Do you think I'm stupid?" While it may seem like that, the more tactical person is at a disadvantage if both trainers can't switch their Pokemon. It is not really the case in this situation. Alex has many Pokemon with boost moves and such a rule is quite beneficial for him. But that doesn't mean he shows it so openly. Apart from the fact that the tactical significance between the two formats is not really that big or even measurable. He intends to use this situation to exploit a weakness in Gary. Gary was a very proud person and Alex had an idea how to use that to his advantage. Gary already had a bad opinion of Alex after seeing Alex's provocation on the post-match show, but now that he witnessed Alex's arrogance in person, he couldn't help but get angry. Do you think tactics will help you in this match? I'm so much stronger than you that I could easily defeat you with my simplest tactics. You can't win. It doesn't matter in which format we fight." Alex just gave Gary an emotionless look as he said, "You don't believe anything you just said, do you?" Gary flashed a smile as he said, "What, did I hit a sore spot? When he saw Alex's emotionless expression, Gary thought he had successfully discomfited Alex. Alex didn't say anything for a few seconds, when he suddenly said, "I'm ready to fight in this format, where no switches are allowed. But I want to be compensated for that. You have to summon your first Pokemon first." The referee looked at Alex and said, "Participant Alex, I'm telling you that now, this agreement between the two of you is not in the rules and not mandatory for either competitor to abide by. Even if participant Gary breaks the agreement immediately, I will take no action or enforce penalties. But if you agree now that you want to fight in this format, you cannot change it later." Alex knew that before the referee told him that, but because he understood Gary's character, he didn't think that it very likely is that Gary would cheat him. Especially against a much weaker opponent, it is unlikely that the proud Gary would do such a thing. Gary looked at the referee. "You don't have to say that. I'm not that pathetic to need to cheat my opponent in order to win against them." After saying that, he looked at Alex and said, "Don't worry, I'll stick to the agreement and call my Pokemon first. Now get on it and let's end this thing quick." Alex looked emotionless at the referee as he said, "I agree to fight in this format." The referee nodded and said a few words into his in-ear headphones. With the fight only a few seconds away from the beginning, Gary started calling his first Pokemon, without saying even one word. A Rhydon that was 2.3 meters tall appeared next to Gary and Alex immediately looked at the info of this Pokemon. Chapter 337, Alex showed a calm expression as he looked at Rhydon's info and he stared analyzed which of his Pokemon was the best choice against Rhydon. This Rhydon had 9 expert rank moves and even 1 master rank move. It's very likely that Gary had this Pokemon for at least 2 years and trained a relatively good amount of time every day. That's why all of Alex's deep gold Pokemon are inferior in terms of move mastery in comparison. Alex was used to it though, and he even felt that this Rhydon wasn't trained very well. To be exact, he felt that the moves Gary chose to train were not optimal. Alex smiled when he decided on a Pokemon. He took Gardevoir's Pokeball and activated it. Gardevoir appeared with a serious expression, though Alex felt it looked like a child showing an expression of an adult. The referee gave a signal and started saying out loud, 3, 2, 1, go. Alex said in a calm tone, D1. Gary said quickly, take down. Also, don't look at Gardevoir with your eyes. Gardevoir immediately uses teleport and directly calm mind after teleporting to the edge of the arena. Alex looked at Rhydon, who had his eyes closed but was still running in the exact direction of Gardevoir as he prepared his move. As expected from a ground/rock type Pokemon, the ability to perceive the vibrations of the ground is really useful. If I hadn't already prepared a plan for it. Alex had a rock-type Pokemon himself, so he was expecting Gary to try to counter Gardevoir's hypnosis like this. Gardevoir didn't wait for Alex's orders and began using her psychic energy to levitate. She had already been told by Alex to do so when Rhydon would no longer use his eyes to look at her. Gardevoir also used Calm Mind at the same time as she hovered slightly off the ground. Alex, who can use psychic energy himself, knew that levitation wasn't particularly strenuous for Gardevoir's body, and it only used up a bit of psychic energy. Because of his many tests, Alex knew that using psychic energy on one's own body consumed the least amount of energy. Much more psychic energy is consumed when it is to be used on other Pokemon, especially powerful Pokemon. The more powerful the life energy surrounding the Pokemon target is, the more psychic energy it takes to manipulate that body, even if it is only slightly. Of course, other factors also play a role, such as distance or duration. In comparison, it is effortless for Gardevoir to manipulate her own body with psychic energy. Though that use of psychic energy isn't without its downsides either. Gardevoir consumes the psychic energy that she needed to use her psychic-type moves. Also, she cannot use moves that are not at least on the expert rank if she wants to manipulate her own body and prepare a move at the same time. Rhydon suddenly couldn't perceive Gardevoir's vibrations and he began to show a confused expression. For him, Gardevoir suddenly disappeared completely. Gary showed a surprised expression. He wasn't surprised that Alex would come up with such a tactic, but rather that Alex's Pokemon would use the tactic on their own without Alex having to say anything. He showed a serious expression as he said, "Rhydon, open your eyes again. But try not to look directly at Gardevoir." While this isn't an optimal solution, Gary had no choice if he didn't want Rhydon to get hit by hypnosis. He had of course seen Alex's last match and he understood how much trouble hypnosis can cause if he didn't take action against this move. Gardevoir uses this time to use Calm Mind for the second time. Rhydon started moving toward Gardevoir to get in range for takedown, but due to its terrible speed, it took him longer than other Pokemon at his level. Although Rhydon is not extremely slow at level 52, it is still very vulnerable to hit and run strategies. When Rhydon was almost within range, Gardevoir used teleport and appeared on the other side of the arena. Alex flashed a smile when he saw this. Although Gardevoir and Scizor were both equally strong in the last tournament, according to Alex, Gardevoir is his strongest Pokemon. If Scizor didn't have a type advantage against Gardevoir, this fight would have ended very differently. Gardevoir is especially a nightmare against slow Pokemon that don't have buff moves or have long-range moves, expert or master rank. Especially the fact that Gary can't change his Pokemon made this situation extremely dangerous for Gary. If Gardevoir can use Calm Mind to the maximum and take no damage while it is boosting, this Gardevoir will become a real problem for Gary to solve. Gary's expression turned ugly when he realized how little his Pokemon could do against Gardevoir. Rhydon, discontinue, take down, and start preparing Stone Edge as you run towards Gardevoir. Stone Edge is Rhydon's best expert rank ranged move. But even Rhydon's best ranged move didn't have a particularly good range. Also, this move also had another problem. The hit chance of this move is not very good. Although it does extremely good damage, Rhydon must first get within range, 20 meters, and hope that the opponent does not dodge this move. But it was better than hoping to get close enough with takedown or set up a normal rank move while not being able to move. Gary felt that no matter what he did, he was in a trap. Chapter 338, Rhydon kept running to get within range to use Stone Edge, but whenever he was about to get within range, Gardevoir would always teleport away. Gardevoir used up a lot of energy to use teleport so quickly and frequently, but as long as she doesn't overuse it, she'll still have enough energy to use other moves later on. Gary's expression kept getting worse and worse as time went by, but he knew there wasn't much he could do other than wait until Gardevoir couldn't use teleport anymore. Alex didn't say anything the whole time and just watched calmly. Realizing that Gardevoir had used Calm Mind to the maximum, he started flashing a smile. He said in a calm tone, D2. Gardevoir was 50 yards away from Rhydon and started preparing another move as Calm Mind. Rhydon, in less than 3 seconds, ran into the range of the move he had been meaning to use all along. But when he got in range and used his move, Gardevoir finished preparing her move and used it immediately. Rhydon was hit by a ridiculously fast beam of what appeared to be light, without even having time to dodge. Almost simultaneously, several sharp-looking stones stick out of the ground where Gravevoir was just floating. Gardevoir tried to dodge but couldn't and was hit by a sharp stone. These stones appear to emerge in extremely random locations, and apart from emerging in a rough area, they don't seem to have any traceable rhythm. Alex's expression turned serious when he saw that Gardevoir had lost about 40% of her HP from that one hit. Rhydon being hit by Dazzling Gleam looked even worse than Gardevoir. Despite being 2 levels higher than Gardevoir, he lost 80% of his HP even though Gardevoir's move wasn't even effective against him or on the master rank. Rhydon's terrible defense against special moves and that the Gardevoir could buff to the max caused it to take extensive damage. Gary said quickly, Rhydon use, take down. But before he could finish his words, Gardevoir teleported to the other side of the arena. Unfortunately, the teleport consumption is very high or Alex would use even more. Gardevoir finished preparing her move and used it immediately after Rhydon was 30 yards away. Normally, moves in this range are dodgeable with a typical speed. Even a normal speed would allow most projectile moves to be dodged at this range. Unfortunately, Rhydon was not only slow but also a big target. He tried to dodge but was hit regardless. A projectile covered in psychic energy, in the shape of a heart, flew rapidly in the direction of Rhydon. Rhydon, who was gathering energy from another move, couldn't even protect himself. He was hit by Draining Kiss and fell unconscious on the ground with an unwilling expression. After falling to the ground, Fairy-type energy suddenly floated out of his body and straight towards Gardevoir. Gardevoir absorbed this Fairy-type energy and most of her wounds began to heal. Gary looked at Alex for a few seconds. I underestimated you. But it's not over yet. Without waiting for Alex's reply, he summoned his next Pokémon. Alex was a bit confused as to why Gary would send those Pokémon against his Gardevoir and not Blastoise, which is 1 level higher and didn't have a slight type disadvantage against Gardevoir. But when he saw Exeggutor's first perfect talent move, he understood immediately. Sludge Bomb on Master Rank is really a deadly move against Gardevoir. Especially considering that Gardevoir has a 4-level disadvantage. But I have a feeling Gary had one more reason to choose this Pokémon over Blastoise. If I am right then, he's really not a bad trainer. Alex also believed that another reason why Gary chose this Pokémon is that he didn't want Gardevoir's hypnosis to cause his Blastoise problem. The referee restarts the match. 3, 2, 1, go. Alex said nothing and let Gardevoir follow his planned strategy. Exeggutor use, teleport, plus, sludge bomb. Alex's expression turned serious when he heard Gary's words. Because Sludge Bomb is a master rank move, Exeggutor can prepare 2 moves at once if it sacrifices preparation time and some damage. 1 asterisk. If Exeggutor uses Teleport directly and then immediately Sludge Bomb afterward, Gardevoir cannot dodge this attack. Alex suddenly said telepathically, Gardevoir use Dazzling Gleam immediately when you're done. Exeggutor needs a lot of time and concentration right now preparing both moves so it can hit at that range. After that, Gary was looking at the arena when he suddenly saw Alex's head surrounded slightly by a purple aura. Though it can be missed if you're not looking directly, Gary noticed it almost immediately. He thought with a serious expression, Alex is a psychic? He really has hidden his strengths well. What an annoying opponent. Chapter 339, Gardevoir, who prepared only one move, finished first and immediately used Dazzling Gleam against Exeggutor. However, Exeggutor only lost a little over 30% of his HP after being hit by this attack. Gardevoir didn't start preparing another move and she's waiting for Exeggutor. Gary felt that Alex had given this strange command to Gardevoir via his psychic powers and he wasn't sure what to do. Although he wasn't sure what Alex's plan was, he didn't want Exeggutor to interrupt his two moves after they were almost done setting up. Exeggutor, teleport, just behind Gardevoir and use the move, Sludge Bomb, within 1 second. Gardevoir, who was already ready for this situation, used Protect immediately. But her shield didn't last even a moment and broke almost immediately. She just blocked a little more than half and the rest hit her directly. Alex thought with a serious expression against Master Rank moves. Especially against Pokemon with a higher level, the Protect on the normal rank is too weak. I should consider whether this move is worth training on expert rank. After all, this move is very useful even though it can almost never be used twice in the same fight. Gardevoir lost almost 40% of her HP after this hit and barely had 20% HP left. Without her Calm Mind, SPE. Death buff, she would fall unconscious to the ground after that hit. Alex thought, I already know that Gardevoir has less HP in this world than in the games, but I don't assume it was that much less. Maybe it is because of the level? Also, I should test how much Calm Mind boosted Gardevoir on the expert rank. It's definitely less than 100% x2, and probably closer to 50% x 1.5. Maybe even only 30% x 1.3. Also, using it the second time might be less effective. But it's probably hard to test accurately. Gardevoir didn't wait for Alex's orders and immediately prepared her next move as the pain from her body endured. Exeggutor quickly used Sludge Bomb. Although Gardevoir started preparing her move a bit earlier, Exeggutor finished his move a bit quicker. Exeggutor was still within range and he immediately used Sludge Bomb. When the projectile, Purple Orb, was about to hit Gardevoir, Gardevoir likewise finished her move and she immediately used Hyper Beam. She then immediately fell unconscious to the ground with a lot of injuries on her body. Hyper Beam hit Exeggutor directly and this hit harshly injures Exeggutor. He lost around 40% of his HP and was left with a little less than 1/3 of his life energy, HP. Gary defeated Alex's first Pokemon but showed an unhappy expression. Not only did he lose one of his Pokemon, but also his two strongest Pokemon lost around 70% of his HP. The situation was extremely bad for him and he felt extremely frustrated. If he hadn't allowed Gardevoir to buff herself so easily, this wouldn't have happened. He regretted showing Alex his first Pokemon and making it possible. The judge instructed Alex to call his next Pokemon within 30 seconds, and Alex does it almost immediately without saying another word. Alex flashed a smile as he looked at Scizor. Not only does Scizor take almost no damage from the Master Rank Sludge Bomb, but it is resistant to every other expert rank move Exeggutor can use. And that's without considering Scizor's offensive type advantage against Exeggutor. This is a completely counter and only the level advantage makes Exeggutor's attacks dangerous, or Scizor could probably even counter-heal them with Roost. The referee started the fight. 3, 2, 1, go. Alex didn't say anything and Scizor immediately started preparing X-Scissor as he ran toward Exeggutor at the same time. Gary quickly said, Exeggutor, teleport yourself away from Scizor and use Sunny Day. Alex immediately said telepathically, Scizor interrupt, X-Scissor, and use Swords Dance, while keeping your distance. Of course, Alex cannot use code words for these detailed commands and must give them directly. Luckily he can say it telepathically and not allow his opponent to hear what he said. The only downside is that it's slower than code words. More accurate and flexible but slower. Alex uses both types of commands. Depending on the situation, he takes which of the two is more effective and can therefore use both to their advantage. Exeggutor was the first to finish his move and the arena started to generate a heat similar to a sauna. Gary didn't immediately give a new command to Executor and looked at what Sizor planned to do. Sizor finished shortly after Executor, and he used Swords Dance. Gary, who didn't want to see one of Alex's Pokemon buffing himself again, knew he couldn't delay this fight any longer. Alex gave his next order, Telepathy, to Sizor, and Sizor immediately ran towards Executor as he prepared his next move. Executor used Psychic, while not allowing Sizor to get close. Alex said with a smile, Gary, you use Sunny Day to allow your Executor to be much faster than Sizor and not for Solar Beam, which your Executor probably can. You want to make Sizor completely harmless against this speed because you know that he can hardly do long-distance moves. Simple but very effective. Gary looked at Alex, who suddenly started wanting to talk to him, and he said, You can skip your baits. I won't let your tricks provoke me. I'm not Misty. After that, he looked at the arena with a serious expression without saying another word to Alex. Alex thought with a smile, I don't want to provoke you, I just want to distract you a bit. Executor was extremely fast and didn't allow Sizor to get any closer than 30 yards. When Alex noticed how Sizor was almost finished with his move, he started to show a small smile. Sizor used Aerial Ace, and this move quickly fly toward Executor. Executor also used a move and Psychic, straight hit Sizor, who couldn't dodge that move. Executor tried to dodge Aerial Ace with his speed, but that move tracked Executor and didn't give him enough time to protect. After this blow, Executor showed an expression of displeasure as he fell unconscious to the ground. Gary showed a shocked expression. He looked at Alex as he said, That doesn't make any sense. Why is your Sizor running in the direction of Executor when it can do a move like Aerial Ace? Having said that, he immediately understood why Sizor had done it. Alex just smiled as he looked at Gary. Gary felt that Alex made fun of him, and although Alex didn't say a word, Gary felt a wave of indescribable anger towards Alex. I've said it 1 or 2 times in the story, but Pokemon like Graveler and Alakazam that can use Teleport have less HP than in the games. Teleport is an extremely ridiculous move, and any Pokemon that can do this move shouldn't become completely OP. Even with this vulnerability, Pokemon like Graveler are still ridiculously strong with the move Teleport, and almost invincible against some matchups. It's very strong defensively, so I think it's a fair trade. Chapter 340. After a few seconds, Gary calms down as he remembers who his opponent was. He knew the main reason Misty lost to Alex was that he had successfully provoked her, and Gary didn't want to make the same mistake. After he calmed down again, he realized that the situation is not as bad as he thought. Even though he lost 2 Pokemon for just 1 Pokemon, plus a bit damage to Sizor, his next Pokemon can quickly defeat Alex's Sizor. Without waiting for 30 seconds, he calls his next Pokemon. Alex showed a calm expression as he looked at the information from this Arcanine. Worse than I expected. Although his 3 innate talent moves are good, none of those moves are Fire-type moves. This makes it much harder for Gary to train a Fire-type move on the Master rank and takes a lot of time. No wonder he prefers to train more moves on the Expert rank. Alex showed a calm expression as he was sure that his new tactic for Sizor could cause a lot of problems for Gary and his Arcanine. 3, 2, 1, go. Without saying a word, Sizor started running away from Arcanine as he prepared a move. Alex guessed there was a very good chance that Gary would send Arcanine against his Sizor if Gary can, so that he had a plan specifically against this Pokemon. It didn't take a genius to see that. Although planning against this Fire-type Pokemon without information is much harder than predicting that it will fight against Sizor if Gary has the chance. Gary, who felt the arena was still warm thanks to Sunny Day, immediately wanted to take advantage of that. Pursue Sizor and use Heat Wave as soon as you are in range. Alex knew of course that Arcanine is faster than Sizor and can't outrun him. He just wanted to delay a bit before Arcanine gets in range and not allow him to immediately use his move once he's ready. Although this tactic has the disadvantage that Sizor is also out of range for his attack moves, it's extremely effective if Alex doesn't plan to attack at all. Because of the speed disadvantage, the distance got smaller and smaller after every second, so that this tactic barely made a difference. Though this small time advantage was extremely important for Alex's next plan. Sizer, who started preparing a move sooner as Arcanine got ready with it first and he was waiting to use his move. The heat from the arena slowly began to dissipate and a small stream of sand began to appear around the arena. This sandstorm from Sizer wasn't as dense as it usually is and is more of a standard version of the move, Sandstorm. Alex wanted the Sizer to use this version because recently he noticed something interesting that he hadn't noticed before about this move. The dense sandstorm, which uses most of the energy from the move to obstruct the enemy's vision, was many times weaker in terms of damage than the normal version of Sandstorm. It was just a theory he had at first after seeing how much damage Pokemon got from the normal Sandstorm and how little Sizer's Sandstorm does, but after several tests, he could confirm his theory. So against Pokemon that can perceive Sizer even in the dense sandstorm, the normal version is much more effective and more useful. Arcanine is well known for his extremely good sense of smell, so Alex knew that limiting Arcanine's vision wouldn't do much against this Pokemon. In comparison, better damage is much more useful. Especially considering that Sizer doesn't have to be within Arcanine's attack range for this move to use it effectively. Alex said telepathically, "Get ready, Sizer." Arcanine got in range for his move in just a second later than Sizer used his move and he immediately used Heat Wave. Heat Wave's range on the expert rank is not good. But it has a great advantage that few moves have. It hits everything in its range and it also has a quick travel speed when used. Heat Wave would be a perfect AoE attack if it doesn't have the downside of a below-average range. Arcanine, who had used this move frequently, knew exactly from which range Sizer had no chance of evading this move. Although Sizer has to run less than 3 meters to dodge this move, it's almost impossible to do, even for extremely fast Pokemon on a similar level. Extremely fast Pokemon would have trouble dodging this move, let alone Sizer. Sizer has been waiting for this moment and immediately uses Quick Attack, which hardly needed any preparation time. Quick Attack was used without a target and Sizer briefly accomplished a considerably faster speed than Crobat, even though Sizer barely dodged Arcanine's attack. Alex saw how effective his new tactic was and he smiled as he thought, "It's even better than I thought with the right timing." It's defensive very similar to Protect, and that without the offensive that this move can bring. Especially that Sizer has 2 such moves is really helpful. Bullet Punch and Quick Attack are extremely ridiculous moves in Alex's opinion, even though they can practically only be used once per fight. Gary looked surprised at Sizer who dodged this extremely fast attack. He remembered all the fights, all the documented fights, from Alex's Sizer and he doesn't remember Alex using such a tactic even once. He thought with a slightly drained expression, "Is this a joke? Why am I always at a disadvantage no matter what I do? This is the most disgusting fight I've ever had." Chapter 341, Sizer doesn't waste time after he successfully dodges this dangerous move and Sizer used Bullet Punch almost immediately after that. His goal was not Arcanine but the other side of the arena. He uses this move to build up a distance between him and Arcanine again. Arcanine, who noticed that Sizer was out of range again, looked at his trainer, who hadn't given him a new order yet. Gary started waking up when he saw his Pokemon give him a confused expression. Arcanine run in range again. Also, prepare Heat Wave again when you run. Don't worry, he shouldn't have any more moves like Bullet Punch or Quick Attack. Alex had an emotionless expression but he knew that Gary was right about what he said and that Sizer can't really dodge Arcanine's next attack. Unfortunately, Sizer was at too much of a disadvantage against Arcanine, so that Sizer can't do much against Arcanine. Even with this tactic, Arcanine is faster than Sizer and would still be faster than a Sizer that had successfully used Agility once. Also, Sizer needs to be in melee range for his strongest move, making it very easy for Arcanine to hit Sizer successfully. Sizer still showed a calm expression as he prepared his next move. Arcanine ran as fast as he could to get within range of Heat Wave, but he took longer than Sizer, who only need to prepare his move. Caesar used Aerial Ace, and the move tracked Arcanine like a guided missile. Arcanine didn't try to dodge either, so that the move hit him with a problem. Alex said telepathically, "Caesar, don't prepare a new move and get ready to use Protect." Arcanine suffered a small wound from the hit, but it didn't seem that he suffered much damage. Alex would estimate it to be between 10 and 15%. It's not a lot of damage, but in Alex's mind, that damage and Sandstrom was the reward for Caesar and his effort. It didn't take Arcanine much longer to get within range of his move. He uses Heat Wave almost immediately after he gets in range. Caesar was ready for that moment, and he used Protect and successfully blocked almost all of the damage. He only takes 10% damage, bringing his HP to 60 or 70%. If Protect is not used against moves from a Pokemon with a large level advantage or against strong moves on the Master rank, the stability of Protect is not bad. Caesar or Arcanine immediately began preparing a new move, even though none of their trainers said a word. Alex was a bit surprised when Arcanine suddenly prepared a move without Gary's orders. It seems that Gary also trains his Pokemon to think independently and incorporates this into his tactics. Even if it has only been minimally developed and has not been developed to its full potential. Caesar, who was running away all the time, started running towards Arcanine for the first time as he was preparing his move. Arcanine didn't expect Caesar to suddenly run straight towards him and didn't react for a moment. Both Pokemon were already relatively close to each other, Heat Wave, range, and Caesar doesn't take more than a moment to get extremely close. When Arcanine started to run away from Caesar's melee range, he found that his move was almost complete and that running away now makes no sense. Most melee moves give the Pokemon a short speed buff when they use them, so that Arcanine can't outrun Caesar's attack at that range. It was too late. Caesar used Giga Impact and slammed his whole body into Arcanine as he was simultaneously hit by Heat Wave. Arcanine suffered a serious injury and lost around 35% of HP from just that one hit. Together with the damage from the Sandstrom and Aerial Ace, Arcanine only had a little over 40% of its HP left. By comparison, Caesar could not stand the extreme heat and fell to the ground, unconscious. However, Alex showed a proud expression as he went to Caesar to heal his Pokemon. The fact that Caesar can do so much damage against Arcanine is, in Alex's opinion, a victory in itself. The judge said with a first expression, "Competitor Alex, please call your next Pokemon within 30 seconds. But Alex didn't say anything and just looked at the referee, who was looking at his watch. When there were only 10 seconds left, the referee started counting down as he indicated the number of seconds with his finger. After only 2 seconds were left did Alex summon his next Pokemon. Gary understood that Alex was doing this to make Arcanine take more damage from Sandstrom, but he couldn't help but show a slightly angry expression as he saw Arcanine's expression worsen. But he didn't say anything to Alex and just looked at the Pokemon that Alex summoned. Pokemon, Bastiodon. LV, 49. Type, Rock/Steel. Abilities, Sturdy. Gender, Male. Potential, Shallow Diamond. Moves: Protect, Tackle, Metal Sound, Takedown, Iron Defense, Swagger, Ancient Power, Block, Endure, Sleep Talk, E. Perfect Talent, Rock Polish, M. Perfect Talent, Flamethrower, M. Dash, TM, Taunt, E. TM, Rock Slide, E. TM, Rest, E. TM, Earthquake, E. TM, Flash Cannon, E. TM, Substitute, TM, Bulldoze, TM, Roar, TM, Toxic, E. TM, Ice Beam, TM, Thunderbolt, TM, Double Team. 3, 2, 1, go. Bastiodon immediately began preparing a move without saying a word. Gary quickly said, "Arcanine use Sunny Day, so stay away from Bastiodon." Alex thought, a smart choice. But too predictable. Bastiodon didn't move, however, and he began to prepare his move. He finished sooner than Arcanine, and Bastiodon successfully used Rock Polish, which greatly increases his speed. Although he was still slower than Arcanine, he would only need to use it once more to have the same speed as Arcanine. Gary thought with a slightly surprised expression, a master rank move? And also such a strong move on the master rank. Fortunately, this Pokemon species is not fast, so it has to be used this move more than once to get anywhere near the same speed as my Arcanine. Bastiodon started preparing, Rock Polish, again but at the same time started blasting away from Arcanine. With both Pokemon running away from each other, the distance just got bigger and bigger. Chapter 342, Gary showed a slightly annoyed expression when he realized what Alex was up to. He couldn't allow this Bastiodon to just keep buffing himself like that. Arcanine, run within attack range. Also, while running prepare, Solar Beam. Alex showed a slight expression of disappointment at how quickly Gary had changed his strategy and not allowing his Bastiodon to buff himself more. He thought, well, 2 buffs are good enough. Alex said telepathically, Bastiodon, finish your second, Rock Polish, and then immediately prepare, Rock Slide. Trying to run further away from Arcanine to make it difficult for him to get in range. Although after the second use of Rock Polish, Bastiodon has a speed similar to Arcanine, it is not possible to keep this Arcanine out of attack range for a long time. Because of the limitation of space, the Pokemon that runs away is always at a disadvantage and must always be much faster to bypass this disadvantage. For example, if 2 cats of the same speed are playing tag in a 1 square meter space, the cat playing the catcher always has the advantage and will not take long to touch the other cat even if both are of the same speed. The catcher can be even slower and still win easily as long as he takes advantage of the limitations of space. Bastiodon can only delay time for a bit and not really prevent Arcanine from coming within range soon. Arcanine runs towards Bastiodon as fast as he can while he prepared his move. Bastiodon is already at the edge of the arena and can only run sideways to make it take a bit longer for Arcanine to get in attack range. However, he had already used his second, Rock Polish, and it will not take long for his Rock Slide to be finished. Arcanine finally managed to get within range after several seconds and he immediately used Solar Beam. Bastiodon tried to dodge but was hit by that yellow-greenish beam. His body showed only a few minor injuries and Bastiodon only lost more than 20% HP from that hit. Alex was very happy with these results. Bastiodon, who had a 2-level disadvantage, only took that much damage. Even if this move is only on the expert rank. Bastiodon ignored the slight pain his body was feeling and he immediately used Rock Slide after realizing that he was ready to use this move. Gary said quickly, now, Arcanine. Arcanine immediately used Protect and blocked Bastiodon's attack. The shield managed to block all the damage from this move. Alex showed a calm expression when he saw that his attack didn't work. He said telepathically, Bastiodon, again. Gary said almost simultaneously, Arcanine, use Heat Wave. Make sure he doesn't run away either. However, Bastiodon didn't run away or move as he prepared his next move. Gary didn't know what Alex's plan was but he wouldn't even allow this Bastiodon to buff himself for free. Bastiodon finished a bit faster than Arcanine and he used Rock Slide immediately. After that, he immediately started preparing for this move again. Arcanine tried to dodge the many boulders falling from the sky but was hit. He still didn't faint and only lost 25% of his HP. However, Arcanine also used his move and hit Bastiodon directly with Heat Wave. Bastiodon took even a bit more damage from this hit than from the last one. He lost about 25% HP from this hit. Gary said quickly, again, quick. Bastiodon showed a calm expression as he not only prepared his next move but ran in the direction of Arcanine. Arcanine moved to not allow Bastiodon to get closer and to keep the gap at that distance. But that was just a feint and not something important. Bastiodon does this just to confuse Gary and Arcanine a bit. Alex, who saw Bastiodon throwing in a little feint of his own, flashed a smile as he thought, you've come really far, Bastiodon. Bastiodon finished first again and he immediately used Rock Slide again to end this fight. Arcanine tried to dodge but he failed again. Even though he's almost done with his next move, Arcanine could only fall to the ground unconscious. Gary healed his Pokemon while simultaneously considering which Pokemon to summon next. While Blastoise is the obvious choice, it is not without its disadvantages. First, Sunny Day is still active, which greatly weakens Blastoise's water-type moves. And second, once he selects Blastoise, Alex will have a chance to select the perfect counter against his Pokemon after defeating Bastiodon. Both of these points can be avoided if Blastoise is summoned by Gary later and not if Alex still has so many Pokemon to choose from. When Alex only has 2 or even 1 Pokemon to choose from, it's much harder to counter his Blastoise. At least in theory. Although for Gary the first disadvantage is enough not to summon Blastoise as his next Pokemon. Gary called his next Pokemon with a relatively calm expression. Even though he lost half of his team, he still believes he will win. Chapter 343, the referee started the fight. 3, 2, 1, go. Gary said, Alakazam use, Calm Mind, and teleport away as soon as Bastiodon comes within attack range. Alex, who had already had a plan for this fight, said telepathically, B2. While this situation didn't look particularly good, Alex didn't feel that Bastiodon was necessarily at a disadvantage. Especially when everything goes according to his plan. Bastiodon ran toward Alakazam as he prepared a move at the same time. Both Pokemon finished almost simultaneously, Bastiodon first, and used their respective buff moves. Calm Mind and Rock Polish. Alakazam used Teleport after that and he started preparing a move again. Bastiodon again ran in the direction of the Alakazam as he prepared Rock Polish again. Now that he's even faster than he was before, it doesn't take him long to run from this side to the other side. Because Teleport can't be used while preparing a move, unless one of the 2 moves is a Master Rank move. This move is extremely bad against very fast Pokemon. If a Pokemon is so fast that it can exceed the distance before the time runs out to prepare an Expert Rank move, Teleport's effectiveness is greatly reduced. There's a big difference between a Pokemon that isn't fast enough to get into attack range within the preparation time of an Expert Rank move and a Pokemon that isn't fast enough. Alex, who himself likes to use Gardevoir's Teleport, knew exactly about this weakness. He was able to roughly estimate that after this Rock Polish, Bastiodon is so fast that he arrives within a ranged move range around the time Alakazam needs to prepare an Expert Rank move. Bastiodon finished a bit earlier this time. The gap gets a bit bigger each time because Bastiodon uses a Master Rank move that prepares a bit faster. He's using Rock Polish again and this normally slow Pokemon was now extremely fast. Alex thought, fortunately, Rock Polish is on the Master Rank or the prep time and Bastiodon's speed wouldn't be that good. It is time for the next step. Gary also realized that it's no longer effective to use Teleport, but he shows a happy expression as he says, you made a mistake. Alakazam use Psychic. Now that my Pokemon has already strengthened himself twice, Alakazam won't take many attacks to defeat your Bastiodon. What's the use of speed when Psychic can't be dodged with speed alone? Alex looked at Gary as he said with a smile, you've been talkative all of a sudden. Didn't you say you were going to ignore me? Has that changed now because you feel superior in this fight? Gary wanted to answer Alex's question but looked in the direction of Bastiodon when he saw anything unusual. Bastiodon used Toxic and hit Alakazam who failed to dodge. He finished earlier because he started preparing his moves earlier than Alakazam. Alex times it perfect like that. Alex looked at Gary as he said with a smile, if you'd rather have the time to think than provoke me, it probably wouldn't happen. Although that statement wasn't actually true in this case, in Alex's opinion, it doesn't really matter if it's really true or not. As long as Gary gets mad about it, it has fulfilled its meaning. Gary, who thought a few seconds ago that he finally had a tactical advantage, suddenly felt the harsh reality. He clasped his hands together as he controlled his emotions. Gary knew now wasn't the time and he didn't want to lose to Alex just because he got angry and made more mistakes. Alakazam also finished his move and he immediately uses Psychic. Bastiodon was hit and lost more than 1/3 of his HP from the hit. His whole body was covered in sores and it didn't look like he could hold out much longer. Along with his previous injuries, Bastiodon was down to just over 20% of his HP. Gary, seeing this, smiled as he said, "It seems it doesn't matter." Alex looked at Gary with a speechless expression, as he thought, "Why are you always happy so early? Can't you wait for it to happen?" Gary noticed Alex's odd expression but didn't pay attention to that anymore, and he started looking at Bastiodon, who was already preparing a move before he was hit by Psychic. Bastiodon finished with the move, Rest, and he used it almost immediately. Bastiodon fell to the ground with a sluggish expression as all the wounds on his body began to heal. Alex telepathically said to Bastiodon, "Sleep talk." Gary, who saw this, still showed a calm expression. "That's just a bit of a time delay." Alakazam hit Bastiodon again with a Psychic, and several new wounds appeared on Bastiodon's body. Gary said with a serious expression, "Alakazam, use Psychic 2 more times and we'll finally defeat these Pokemon." Alex knew that by the time Bastiodon had to take 2 plus 0.25 Master Rank moves, he wouldn't wake up and Bastiodon wouldn't get a chance to use Rest again. He could only hope that the Sleep Talk as 2 random Expert Rank moves weren't too bad. Bastiodon finished first using Sleep Talk, and a white steely beam flew towards Alakazam. The move was definitely Flash Cannon, and Alex felt his luck wasn't bad. Alakazam was hit, and after enduring the pain he used Psychic. Bastiodon started preparing his move a bit earlier than Alakazam, but Alakazam didn't start much later. Also, Alakazam is preparing a Master Rank move, so it's unclear who will finish their move first. Both trainers looked at the arena with serious expressions, as they hope their Pokemon will finish their move first. But both Pokemon finished almost at the same time and both could use their moves. Bastiodon was hit by Psychic for the 3rd time after using Rest, and he fell to the ground unconscious. Alakazam was simultaneously hit by a dense poison projectile. This wasn't the first time he'd been hit with a move like this in this fight either. Alex, seeing that this move is toxic, Alex showed an unhappy expression as he thought, "That's a bit unlucky." Chapter 344. Alex didn't immediately call his next Pokemon, but he waited for almost 30 seconds to do more damage to the Alakazam. Gary saw that too, but he didn't say anything and just looked at Alex unemotionally. He didn't want to be influenced by his emotions at this critical moment. Before the referee could give Alex a warning, Alex called his next Pokemon. Not wanting to waste any more time, the referee quickly said, 3, 2, 1, go to start the fight. Umbreon didn't move when she started preparing a move. Gary said with a serious expression, "Alakazam, use Recover." Alex, who heard that, didn't change his facial expression but thought that Gary's decision wasn't right. Although Bastiodon's Toxin isn't as strong as Crobat or from Pokemon at a similar level to Alakazam, it's still a very effective move in a prolonged fight. Toxin is a move that Alex read a lot about, and he even made a few tests of his own with this move. Once a Pokemon is hit by a poison move like Toxin, only 2 different situations can arise. 1. The poison is too weak and the affected Pokemon repels the poison. This only happens with a large level difference or when used on Pokemon types that are hard to poison, like Steel and Poison-type Pokemon. 2. The poison begins to spread through the whole body. After that, then starts to do more and more damage to the Pokemon's body every second. The process also speeds up when the affected Pokemon moves or uses moves. This is just the basic information, and Alex learned a lot more from these books and his own tests. For example, that even if a Pokemon is hit twice by a poison move like Toxin, it is irrelevant, because only one poison move can remain in the body of that Pokemon. Therefore, the amount of poison from poison move is also not important as long as it can poison a Pokemon with the amount. It will spread throughout the Pokemon's whole body anyway and will not be stronger with more. Quality is more important than quantity in this case. Alakazam's body will take more and more damage after every second, so Alex doesn't think it makes sense to use moves like Recover. Alex thought with a smile, maybe Gary thought that he had no other choice. Although it's true that Alakazam doesn't have good attacking moves against Umbreon, is it still a bad strategy? Alakazam finished first and he immediately used Recover. This healed many of the internal injuries that he had received from the move, Toxin, but it wasn't enough to heal all of the injuries. Gary wasn't looking at his Pokemon but at Umbreon when he thought, a normal rank move? He made a quick decision as he said, use Alakazam, Teleport, and stay away from Umbreon. Even though it's only a normal rank move, Gary knew it couldn't be a typical move if Alex used it. Umbreon finished and she immediately used Psych Up. She just needs to look at Alakazam's body to activate this move and to copy Alakazam's buffs. Although Psych Up can't copy 100% of the buffs on the normal and expert ranks, it's better than nothing. Mainly because Alakazam had buffed twice with Calm Mind, and that was a way for Umbreon to boost her SPE def. Alex didn't send Umbreon into this fight to win quickly, but to buff Umbreon as much as possible without taking a huge toll. Alakazam, who only had 2 attack moves that are both terrible against Umbreon, is the perfect opponent for Umbreon to do that with. Umbreon immediately began preparing her next move. She now starts buffing herself with Work Up. Gary's expression darkened when he realized that Alex wasn't planning on quickly defeating his Pokemon. He said with an unhappy tone, Alakazam, teleport in front of Umbreon and start preparing, Knock Off. Although the attacking move, Knock Off, is really bad, he had no other choice. Alakazam can do moves like Focus Blast, but without the ability to move, the chance to hit with this move is almost zero. Besides that, this move itself didn't have a high hit rate. Alex just looked calm and didn't give any further orders. He wasn't worried about how much a physical move from Alakazam could do against Umbreon. Especially because this move was even ineffective against Umbreon. This belief is confirmed after Umbreon was hit by the first Knock Off. She lost so little HP that Alex was only sure it was under 5% HP. Gary also noticed how bad the damage was and he knew that he has to do something or Umbreon will buff herself to the max. He suddenly had a good idea how to stop this. Gary took the Pokeball from Alakazam and recalled his Pokemon from battle. The referee showed a serious expression as he said, Stop, which was the signal to pause the fight. He then looked at Gary and said with a serious expression, Participant Gary, you performed an illegal action. Not only do you get a warning, but the Pokemon you recalled is no longer allowed to participate in this battle and counts as a defeated Pokemon. Gary showed a calm expression as he said, Okay. Alex flashed a small smile as he said, Oh, I see. Pretty clever. Chapter 345, Freya said with a smile, into her mic, It seems like that in this fight, Participant Gary deliberately gave up his Pokemon so that Alex's Umbreon couldn't further empower herself. While I can understand why he's doing this, it feels bad to sacrifice a Pokemon for only this. After all, Participant Gary only has 2 Pokemon left. Professor Walder showed a serious expression when he said, although it may seem like that, Gary's decision was in reality very smart. The Alakazam clearly didn't have any moves that could damage Umbreon, or Alakazam wouldn't use Knock Off. Gary did not have a better choice. Erica said in a soft tone, I agree with Professor Walder. Alakazam wouldn't do much damage against Umbreon, and during that time Umbreon could use the time to buff itself more. Participant Gary's decision was right, even if it looked a bit unusual. Freya said with a smile, It's good to have you guys here or I'll miss that detail. Oh, it looks like Gary had summoned his next Pokemon. Gary showed a calm expression as he called his next Pokemon. Despite being in a 2 versus 3 situation, he wasn't really worried. Gary still had his strongest Pokemon. Alex, who saw the information from this Blastoise, showed a serious expression. 8 expert rank moves and 2 master rank moves? This Blastoise really is a step above any other Pokemon Gary has. The referee said, 3, 2, 1, go. Gary flashed a smile as he said, Go Blastoise, show that fool what you can do. Alex, who heard the words of Gary, started to frown. Not because Gary called him a fool but because Blastoise prepared a move after hearing those words. From Gary's words alone, Alex didn't know what moves Blastoise was preparing or what Gary's plan was. Umbreon was already preparing a move without Alex saying anything, and she also looked at Blastoise with a wary expression. Blastoise headed in Umbreon's direction as he began to prepare his move. Alex knew Umbreon was too slow to outrun Blastoise and even slow to delay getting into attack range, so he said nothing and just watched the situation. Blastoise suddenly began to snap his head back into his shell as his head began accumulating energy. Alex immediately recognized this move. Skull Bash, not a bad move. But I had no intention of harming Blastoise through normal means anyway. After Blastoise hit his head in his shell, Umbreon also finished her move and she immediately used Toxic. Blastoise tried to dodge but was hit and successfully poisoned. Gary gave an annoyed expression as he said, "Can all your Pokemon this move on the expert rank? Why don't you teach your Pokemon other moves as well?" Alex ignored Gary's sarcastic tone as he replied with a smile, "Why would I do that when it works so well?" Umbreon immediately began preparing a new move without Alex having to say anything so that Alex doesn't worry and can continue to distract Gary. Gary's annoyed expression returned to his usual when he said, "It won't do you any good if your Pokemon can't hold out long enough." To Alex's surprise, Umbreon finished her next move quicker than Blastoise, who started earlier. Umbreon used Shadow Ball and hit Blastoise, who is still hiding in his shell. Huh? How could Umbreon? Fuck, this isn't a normal Skull Bash. Before Alex could say, protect, or react any faster, Blastoise finished and he used his move, or rather moves. Blastoise doesn't use Dragon Pulse against Umbreon but to envelop his whole head with the Dragon-type energy. Blastoise then launched his whole body like a cannonball at Umbreon at ridiculous speed, without giving Alex or Umbreon enough time to react. Umbreon tried to dodge but couldn't and was hit in the head by Blastoise's head. At the same time, all of the Dragon-type energy covering Blastoise's head exploded in Umbreon's front. A critical hit. Umbreon would lose 80 or 90% of her HP on just one non-crit hit from this move, but with that critical hit, Umbreon had no chance of not falling unconscious to the ground after that blow. Blastoise showed a happy expression even though his head showed a bruise and he looked a bit tired after that combo attack. Alex shows a slightly annoyed expression as he sees Gary's Blastoise attack knocking Umbreon to the ground unconscious with only one hit. Fuck, Gary really managed to combine two moves. Dragon Pulse plus Skull Bash isn't a joke. But he wouldn't be a problem if it wasn't a fucking crit. Fuck, why is this happening right now? Alex, however, began to get less angry when he saw the condition of Umbreon and he started to show a worried expression. Umbreon's body had extremely many wounds and especially her head had almost no spot without a large wound on it. In addition, her whole body was covered with blood, which was pouring out of her many wounds. If Umbreon is not healed soon, she may even die from this injury. Alex ran towards Umbreon with a worried expression as he immediately started healing her, as best as he could, with a Hyper Potion. Only after Umbreon stopped bleeding and her body began to visibly heal, did Alex's expression calm down a bit. Chapter 346, the referee gave Alex a 30-second timer to call his next Pokemon. Alex didn't summon his next Pokemon right away though, and he started thinking intensely about how best to defeat this Blastoise. Although the situation looked bad, Alex recognized a few details that didn't make it look too bad for him. Alex could see that Blastoise had gotten a big wound on his head after using his combo move. Just using this combo move should have cost him about 15 to 20% of his HP. Also, he noticed that Blastoise looked extremely tired after using this move. Although this tiredness was only visible for a few seconds, Alex knew that Blastoise's body was still at least a little tired after this combo move. Alex didn't know if this tiredness meant that Blastoise couldn't use the combo move right away or if it was just a move that was physically demanding and can be used again after a couple of seconds. Although it looked like an easy win for Blastoise to the crowd, Alex knew better. He didn't think Blastoise would defeat any of his other Pokemon without falling unconscious himself. Gary gives a disgusted expression when he sees Alex waiting those 30 seconds again to let his Pokemon take more damage from the poison. He thinks it's a useless struggle and that this weak poison can't do much damage to Blastoise when it's not moving or in a fight. After Alex had only 3 seconds left, he started calling his next Pokemon. Gary looked at Blaziken as he thought, this Pokemon can attract on the Master rank if I remember correctly. And because Blastoise can only detect another Pokemon with his eyes, I can't avoid it either. This will be an annoyance. The referee doesn't wait long before he starts the fight again. 3, 2, 1, go. Alex said telepathically to his Pokemon, Blaziken, we're changing the plan, you're going to. Gary said in a serious expression, Blastoise use, Surf. Also, don't look at Blaziken after you know roughly where it is. Alex, hearing this command, showed a slightly surprised expression. He didn't expect Gary to come up with such a brilliant plan in such a short amount of time to minimize, attract, threat without sacrificing attack power. Surf had a very wide range and Blastoise doesn't have to be looking at Blaziken all the time to hit with this move. It is enough if he knows roughly where Blaziken is to hit with this move, even if that gives Blaziken a small chance to dodge, Surf. Blaziken began running away from Blastoise at the start of the fight as she prepared her move. Blastoise, who wants to look at Blaziken as little as possible, didn't always run in the most direct way to Blaziken, and he didn't manage to get within range for his move after he'd already finished preparing it. Blaziken finished her move a good while later when she used finally her move, Sunny Day. At almost the same time Blastoise comes within range for his move. Gary quickly said, Blastoise, you can aim now. Blaziken doesn't have enough time to prepare, attract, right now. Blaziken, hearing Gary's words, flashed a small smile. Especially when she saw Blastoise looking her way. She immediately, attract, and direct hits Blastoise who is looking at her. Gary wore a shocked expression as he simply said, What? How? Alex said with a smile, Gary, you didn't disappoint me. You saw the weakness and immediately tried to exploit it. Gary wore a shocked expression as he said, You plan that? What's that nonsense? That's impossible? Alex said with a serious expression, No, it's not impossible. It's just a bit risky. I knew you saw my last fight, or at least I thought you saw it with a high probability. It's not hard to guess that you'll adjust your combat style around this move. Gary gave an incredible expression, It still doesn't make sense. How did you know that I would use this moment to attack? Alex flashed a smile as he said, Because at that moment your Pokemon suddenly came into attacking range and this situation looked like a perfect chance to do something like that. What a coincidence, or maybe. Gary showed a speechless expression. He heard the words of Alex. Alex continued, Any good trainer would do that, and I have to say, you didn't disappoint me, Gary. Although he said to himself, although an extremely good trainer would have noticed that Blaziken had started preparing a move before your Blastoise, but she had taken longer to use her move even though both moves are on expert rank. If you think about it, you would conclude that Blaziken likely also prepared a master rank move at the same time. Of course, finding that out in 1 or 2 seconds isn't easy. Blaziken, who by now had her next move ready, used Solar Beam and hit Blastoise, who still had a stiff expression. She started preparing the same move immediately afterward. Gary started screaming loudly to wake up Blastoise when he saw that his Pokemon had a relatively big wound from this hit. Blastoise suddenly started to have a slightly surprised expression and he started moving again. Alex showed an unhappy expression as he saw how briefly this Blastoise was incapacitated. Blastoise use Surf plus Dragon Pulse, no combo move. After a moment, Blaziken got her next Solar Beam ready and she shot Blastoise with it again. Blastoise's body was covered with multiple wounds and the toxic continually damaged his body. It didn't look like he would last much longer. Alex said telepathically, Blaziken use Protect and start to prepare Overheat immediately afterward. Blastoise finished and he used the move Surf, which was almost completely blocked by Blaziken's Protect. But Blastoise used Dragon Pulse, basically immediately after, Surf, and he hit Blaziken with the entire force of this move. Blaziken was hit by Dragon Pulse and lost more than 40% of his HP. Alex thought, hard to believe it wasn't a solo Dragon Pulse. It has been implied a few times in the story that if you prepare two moves at the same time, the effectiveness and power of the two moves is weaker than if you prepare a solo move. Gary said as fast as he could, Blastoise use Dragon Pulse. But Blaziken started preparing her move earlier than Blastoise, due to Alex's earlier instruction. Alex saw Blastoise's condition and he was pretty sure that after an overheat, Blastoise would be defeated. Blaziken finished her move first and she immediately used overheat. Blastoise didn't try to dodge it, he kept a calm expression as his whole body hurt and as this body suddenly felt incredibly exhausted. Gary, who thought that Blastoise was about to fall unconscious to the ground, suddenly saw how Blastoise's eyes radiated in strong willpower and how Blastoise managed to take the hit. Even though Blastoise knew that his body will collapse after one moment, he still showed a smile. There was enough time to use his next move. Alex saw that and he said, "Quick, dodge." Blaziken tried to dodge but couldn't make it and she was hit by Blastoise using Dragon Pulse. Chapter 347, Alex looked at the arena and he showed an annoyed expression as he saw Blaziken unconscious on the ground. Although Blastoise is also knocked out on the ground, Alex didn't feel like this fight went very well. When Alex healed Blaziken, he thought, this is really a bit unlucky. I didn't think Blastoise would take this hit. Even if it was only 1 second awake, it was enough to make this fight again unpredictable. The referee looked at both trainers as he said, "Please call your next Pokemon on my signal." Alex flashed a smile as he said, "No problem." Though we only have one Pokemon left anyway. Although this match turned out to be a 1 versus 1, Alex had a calm expression. He had the confidence that Crobat and he wasn't going to lose in this 1v1 fight. Especially because Gary has no longer one of his two strongest Pokemon left. Alex and Gary called their last Pokemon at the referee's signal. Alex's expression turned a bit serious when he saw Pidgeot's info. Brave Bird, could be a problem. Crobat saw Alex's serious expression and he visibly rolled his eyes. Alex said telepathically, "Can't I even show a serious expression without you making fun of me?" Crobat showed an expression of contempt as he said, "You're an idiot. I would win against this Pokemon even without your help and you're worried about us winning? Don't forget you have your strongest Pokemon in this fight." Alex flashed a smile as he said, "You're really confident. It's going to be really embarrassing for you if we lose this fight after you said that." Crobat showed a confident expression, "We are invincible as a team." Alex had a happy expression upon hearing Crobat's words. He said with a smile, "You're so cute today." Crobat shows an angry expression when he hears the words from Alex. He was so angry that he didn't say anything and just looked at Alex with his cold eyes, which looked like the eyes of a serial killer. Alex only smiled as he looked into Crobat's eyes. He knew that Crobat was just mad and wouldn't do anything to harm him. At most, he would say a few unfriendly words or show him this look. 3, 2, 1, go. Alex quickly said, "Crobat, B3. Gary said at the same time, "Pidgeot use Feather Dance. Also, stay away from Crobat." Gary noticed that Alex wasn't giving his commands telepathically anymore, but because Alex was using code words, it was practically just as if he were giving his commands telepathically. It made no difference to Gary. Crobat flew towards Pidgeot as he prepared his move. Because Crobat was a fair bit faster than Pidgeot, he managed to get into attack range just in time before his move was completely ready. He immediately used Toxic, and Pidgeot didn't try to dodge when he used Feather Dance. Pidgeot was hit and poisoned, but Crobat was unable to dodge in time and was hit by Feather Dance. Countless small blue feathers appeared around Crobat, and every time Crobat touched a feather with his body, the feather made of energy was absorbed by Crobat's body and weakened him a bit. After Crobat absorbed a certain amount of feathers, all the feathers began to disappear. Feather Dance has one major disadvantage compared to growl, and that was its range. Growl can be used from a much larger range without worrying about it missing his target. But even with that downside, Alex still thinks that Feather Dance is a better move. Gary said, Pidgeot use Brave Bird. Try to end this fight quickly. Crobat started preparing his next move without Alex having to say anything and therefore started preparing his next move before Pidgeot. Gary's expression darkened as he said, You really only teach your Pokemon that move. Alex looked at Gary, who didn't seem happy that his last 3 Pokemon had been poisoned 3 times in a row, and he gave a happy expression. What can I say, Toxic is a truly good move. Although Alex kept trying to distract Gary, it didn't work as Gary returned his attention to the fight. Pidgeot finished the move, Brave Bird, and he uses it immediately. His body began to be enveloped in flying-type energy as he began flying at Crobat at an extremely high speed. Gary suddenly realized, wait? Why did Pidgeot finish first? But it was too late. When Pidgeot was only 10 meters away from Crobat, he suddenly saw 3 Crobat who looked all identical. Pidgeot couldn't see which of these Crobats is the real one in that short amount of time, a split second, and he chose one at random. Double Team on the expert rank creates 2 identical copies that are indistinguishable from each other. In addition, the copies are impossible to distinguish from the eyes alone. On the normal rank you can distinguish the copies with your eyes. But this move had a few downsides on the expert rank. The 2 copies cannot move and disappear if hit or touched by a move. These disadvantages also make this move incredibly unpopular with most trainers. It is referred to as a trash move by many trainers. But Alex thinks differently about this move than most trainers. For Alex, this move is an extremely powerful defensive move and very effective when timed correctly. While not effective against all moves in Pokemon, it is particularly effective against particular moves. Pidgeot flew through a copy that looked like Crobat and he slammed into the ground. It not only missed the attack but injured itself. Crobat started preparing a new move again without Alex saying anything. Gary flashed an angry expression as he said, Pidgeot quick, use Air Slash. He felt so frustrated fighting against Alex. He couldn't control his emotions anymore. Gary has never felt more powerless in his life than in this Pokemon fight. Especially that he had a level advantage against Alex and he still was failing to get an advantage, made him particularly angry. Alex just shook his head when he saw how mentally tired Gary looked. He didn't understand why so many trainers get so emotional and exhausted against him. Is he such an annoying opponent? This time, Crobat didn't wait to use his move and he started flying high in the air when he used the move, Fly. Pidgeot has to use his move immediately or Crobat will fly out of range, but since his move wasn't ready yet, he could only watch as Crobat flew high in the air. Only during moves like Fly and Dig are Pokemon allowed to be outside of the battlefield. Pidgeot, wait for Crobat to start his dive and you will have a chance to use your move. Crobat stopped flying up after a certain height and he started to fly down as fast as possible. At the same time, he was surrounded by flying-type energy. Pidgeot used Air Slash and hit Crobat when he was only 15 meters away from him. Crobat ignored his pain and rammed Pidgeot with his body. He hit Pidgeot in the head with his move, Fly. A critical hit. Pidgeot showed an expression of pain and half his body was covered in blood, with cum from his head injury. He looked like he couldn't take another one move. Alex quickly said Crobat use Cross Poison. Pidgeot's moves can be finished faster than Crobat's and Crobat is faster than Pidgeot, making it also impossible to get out of range of Cross Poison. Crobat still didn't have a scratch on his body and didn't help to build Gary's confidence. But Gary didn't give up. Pidgeot tried to dodge while using Roost. Pidgeot failed to dodge Crobat's Cross Poison and fell to the ground unconscious. Crobat wore a proud expression upon seeing this. See, we're invincible. Chapter 349, Gary walked over to Alex with a disappointed expression on his face. Despite having that expression, Gary went to Alex to congratulate him on his victory. He held out his hand to Alex, as he said, "Congratulations. You deserve it." Alex showed a slightly surprised expression as he shook Gary's hand. He didn't think that Gary would say that to him after complaining the whole fight about his fighting style. Alex smiled as he said, "Thank you. It was a great fight." Gary said nothing more as he began to leave the arena. He didn't want to stay any longer in this place. He was pretty tired after this fight. The spectators were very friendly to Gary and Alex could hear loud applause as Gary exited the stadium. Alex enjoys his victory for a few more seconds as he witnesses that many spectators begin to shout his name loudly. A few spectators also called him Master of Tactics. It seems that this nickname became even more popular after this win. The stadium was extremely loud and it was difficult to understand what exactly the spectators were shouting. But even in this extremely noisy place, Alex didn't feel uncomfortable. Crobat in particular showed an extremely happy expression as he proudly showed off his undamaged body. Alex knew this was his last win of the tournament, so he didn't say anything and let Crobat have his fun for a bit. In the next round, Alex has to fight against one of the top 4 trainers. He doesn't think about winning, but whether he can defeat any Pokemon from the top 4 trainers. Alex left the arena as he heard extremely loud shouts and applause from the spectators. He was walking towards the waiting room and Alex saw a staff member walking in his direction. "Participant Alex, your next fight will start in about 30 minutes. Please wait in this room and get ready." Alex thanks him and sits down. He started watching the TV, which started showing the next fight. Ash, Participant 9, versus Gideon, Participant 8. Alex had no idea who would win this fight and he looked at this fight with mild interest on his face. This fight was extremely close, but in the end, Ash won after his Charizard defeated 2 of Gideon's Pokemon alone. Alex, who was watching this fight closely, noticed something weird about one of Ash's Pokemon. It wasn't Charizard who alone had defeated 2 Pokemon. It was Ash's Pikachu. Pikachu was level 54, but he was defeated by a level 50 Electrode with just 2 expert rank moves. No matter how bad Pikachu's base stats are, it shouldn't be able to take that much damage from the moves of Pokemon with such a subpar level. Alex knew from experience how much a difference of 4 levels between 2 Pokemon makes, especially at the mid-elite level. What made this even more strange is that this Pikachu was doing way too much damage with his attacks. Alex has quite a lot of experience in this world with how much damage a Pokemon roughly would do with a move. Although in this world it is extremely difficult to calculate precisely how much damage a Pokemon does with a move. Level difference between 2 Pokemon and move mastery extremely affect how much damage a Pokemon does with one attack, but these factors require a lot of experience from a trainer to even roughly estimate. Move mastery is relatively easy to estimate for regular attack moves but extremely difficult to estimate for status moves. How much damage does an expert rank, Toxic, do? Or a master rank, Toxic? How much does an expert rank, Swords Dance, increase the damage of a Pokemon? Level difference is even harder to estimate. How much damage does a level 50 Pikachu with an expert rank, Thunderbolt, do against a level 40 Vileplume? It's extremely hard to tell how much damage Pikachu does. In this case, it's a one-hit KO. But only if Thunderbolt is on the expert or master rank. If Pikachu defeats Vileplume with 1 expert rank, Thunderbolt, could Pikachu at level 49 do it too? What about level 48 or level 47? Alex has been a trainer in this world for over a year and he himself didn't completely know the answer. He was pretty sure that a level 50 Pikachu with 1 expert rank, Thunderbolt, would defeat a level 40 Vileplume with 1 hit. But he had no idea at what level Pikachu would no longer defeat Vileplume with 1 Thunderbolt. Alex can only make a guess with the experience he had as a trainer. Especially that many other factors can change the answer, made it even more difficult to know the answer. Some trainers badly train their Pokemon's body, resulting in them doing less damage than Pokemon that train their body every day. Pokemon as a game in Alex's old world was already extremely complicated, but in this world, it was even more complex. Alex, who understood that, wasn't surprised that there was a Pokemon school in this world. But even with all these factors taken into account, Alex still thinks that Ash's Pikachu is extremely strange. Ash's Pikachu was just doing way too much damage with his moves. What makes it even weirder is that this Pikachu not only did too much damage but also takes too much damage. Alex had no idea what was going on with this Pikachu, but he wanted to look at the information of this Pokemon after he saw this fight. As Alex thinks about it, the TV showed the start of the next rounds, which will start in a few minutes. Chapter 350. As Alex saw his next fight, he couldn't help but shake his head with a peaceful expression. Koga's weakest Pokemon can single-handedly defeat 2 or 3 of its Pokemon. This is not a fight that he can win. Alex wondered whether he should even participate in this fight at all and not just give up straight away. But after a few seconds, he dismissed that idea. Alex was slowly trying to build a good reputation in Kanto, and giving up this fight, without even attempting, can hurt his reputation. He got a mission from Giovanni to earn or even get a new high position in the Alliance, and Alex had no intention of hindering his progress. Although this mission is not something that can be accomplished in a short amount of time, Alex didn't want to simply ignore Giovanni's task for him. He wasn't sure how Giovanni would react and had no intention of testing it. Apart from the fact that Alex also wants to establish a connection with many high-ranking Alliance members, even without Giovanni's mission. As the government of the Pokemon world, the benefits that the Alliance can give Alex are not something that he would want to ignore. Unfortunately, it was extremely difficult to get a good position in the Alliance. Alex has shown great potential for more than half a year, but he has not yet been able to establish a relationship with any high-ranking Kanto Alliance members. Professor Walder and the future gym leaders/champion, who have become friends with Alex, also don't have currently much influence. Professor Walder doesn't really have a high position, and he can't help Alex with many things, even if he wants. As for the future gym leaders/champion, he knew, like Steven and Jasmine, they're not much help for him now either. Steven is not completely unconnected with the Alliance, but has almost all of his connections in the Alliance with the Hoenn Alliance, and he can only help Alex a little bit. Alex's plan is to build a good reputation as a trainer for a few years and attract the Alliance with his talent and good reputation. He uses this method mainly because the Alliance, over the years, has often used this way to attract, with high positions, and get talented trainers. This is the quickest method and much more effective than Alex trying to contact the high-ranking Kanto Alliance members himself. But this method needed a good reputation and enough patience to work. Alex guesses that he should be known as a trainer for at least 2 or 3 years to slowly build up enough fame and trust in the Alliance. A staff member walked in front of Alex, and he said to him, "Competitor Alex, your next fight is about to start. Can you please follow me?" Alex followed the staff member as he walked back to the underpass leading into the stadium. He waited a few minutes before being allowed to enter the stadium. Alex found himself making first an entrance as he walked to the center of the arena where the referee was already waiting. He kept a calm expression, and he flashed a loose smile when he heard a couple of spectators cheer him on loudly. Alex wasn't surprised that there were so fewer fans that cheer for him compared to his last fight. Who gets excited about a fight when victory is already a foregone conclusion? At his last fight, he had at least a chance to win. Koga entered the arena almost immediately after Alex, and he wore his regular clothes while looking serious at his surroundings. Regular clothing represents a purple suit that makes him look like a ninja who likes to poison his opponents. When the referee started explaining the rules, Koga looked at Alex with a cold expression. "So you're the trainer who beat Mason?" Alex, who saw Koga's cold look as he heard these words, didn't know what to say for a few seconds. He showed an inflexible expression as he said, "Yes." Alex wasn't sure for a moment if Koga always had that cold expression on his face or if it was for other reasons that he looked at him with this face. Koga wouldn't blame me for defeating his apprentice in a tournament, would he? He doesn't seem like such a touchy person to me. The referee gave the signal to Alex and Koga to summon their first Pokemon. 2 Crobats, one slightly taller than the other, appeared in the stadium. Alex, who saw which Pokemon Koga chose, showed a speechless expression as he thought. "For real?" He used one of his two strongest Pokemon against a trainer who didn't stand a chance anyway. Surely that must be the little revenge for his apprentice? 3, 2, 1, go. Alex and Koga said nothing and both Crobats started preparing their moves. Alex's Crobat tried to create distance from Koga's Crobat but was too slow, and Koga's Crobat doesn't even take a moment to fly directly in front of Crobat. Koga's Crobat was so incredibly fast that Alex gave a slightly surprised expression when he saw how much faster this Pokemon can fly than his Crobat. Koga's Crobat not only moved incredibly fast but also finished his move sooner than Alex's Crobat. Wing Attack hit Alex's Crobat and he not only dropped unconscious to the ground, but Crobat suffered a large wound on his upper body. This wound was not life-threatening but not something that was negligible either. Alex immediately ran to Crobat and he started healing his Pokemon. After seeing this major injury on Crobat's body, he made a decision. He looked at the referee and he said, "I give up." Chapter 350, the referee said loudly, "Participant Alex gave up. Participant Koga wins this match." Koga showed only an emotionless expression upon hearing that he had won that fight. He recalled his Pokemon right away and left the arena without even looking at Alex or saying a word. It was very rude to do so, but Alex just kept a calm expression. He was secretly happy when Koga ignored him, and Alex didn't intend to speak to Koga any further. Koga was one of the rare human monsters in the Pokemon world that are more dangerous than normal Pokemon champions are. At least normal Pokemon champions are not extremely skilled and experienced in the assassination of humans and Pokemon or have weird skills. Koga or Sabrina have such weird skills as human that they are far more dangerous to Alex than most Pokemon champions. Even though they are weaker than most Pokemon champions in a direct Pokemon fight. Alex called Crobat back to his Pokeball after healing him and he slowly started to leave the arena. He gained a lot of fans in this tournament, and when he went to the underpass he heard many positive shouts from the spectators. Most even call him by his nickname, Master of Tactics, rather than his real name. Alex flashed a smile as he realized that his fans weren't too disappointed after this one-sided match, that he gave up. He was already willing to take a hit in his popularity after he gave up this match, to avoid more unnecessary injury his Pokemon would suffer. But it seemed his worries were unfounded. When he entered the waiting room again, a staff member was already waiting for him. The staff member said a few polite words to him and then take Alex to a big room, where Alex will get his prize. In this room were not only several surveillance cameras and a thick steel door, but also half of the room was separated with thick glass. Alex could see many extremely valuable items behind this thick glass. This room even had a bodyguard who looked at Alex and the staff member when they entered the room. Alex suddenly realized he was seeing the info of a Pokemon when he looked at the man's shadow. Alex knew that this man wasn't strong enough to directly defeat one of the top 8 participants and that he was probably supposed to stop potential burglars that want to steal the items. However, this man wasn't weak, and if he had several Pokemon at that level, Alex himself wasn't sure he could win against this man. Alex, who finishes in the top 8, not only gets 5 million Pokedollars in prize money but also a special item as his price. The 5 million Pokedollars was a ridiculous amount of money for a regular trainer, but just a good amount for any top 16 trainers in this tournament. Not bad, but not a lot of money either. The one special item that a top 16 participant could get was the real prize. Alex would normally pick the most expensive item if he can, but because he's only finished in the top 8, he was only able to choose from items within 20 million Pokedollars. But he already knew before his last fight which item he would choose. Please give me the Dragon Scale. Dragon Scale is very similar to the item Dragon Fang. It can also only be found from a corpse of a fully evolved Dragon-type Pokemon. Not every Dragon-type species will generate a Dragon Scale or Dragon Fang upon dying, although a high level greatly increases the chance of it happening. However, Dragon Fang is more than twice as expensive as Dragon Scale, although both are almost equally difficult to obtain. Dragon Scale is very useful for trainers with a Seadra, but not for all Dragon-type Pokemon like Dragon Fang. It is still rare and is not always on sale. It is not an item that is cheap. Dragon Scale is worth somewhere between 17.5 and 20 million Poke Dollars, which makes it almost the perfect item for Alex. It's better to choose this item now than to wait and buy it overpriced later. Or wait months for it to be offered at a normal price. With this item, his Seadra will soon become a Shallow Diamond Kingdra and thus his 6th Pokemon with this potential. He will soon also have a team full of Shallow Diamond Pokemon. Like Steven. In addition, his first 3 Pokemon can shortly all reach a Shallow Diamond potential if he has enough money. For Crobat, Gardevoir, Scizor together, Alex already bought items worth around 90 million Poke Dollars, and according to his estimate, he needed another 210 million Poke Dollars to bring all his 3 Pokemon to the Shallow Diamond potential. That's just an estimate by Alex though, and Alex himself has conceded the possibility that it could take, more or less, than 100 million Poke Dollars of items worth to improve one of his 3 starting Pokemon's potential. Alex could only hope it wasn't much more than 100 million Poke Dollars per Pokemon. Not that he had now that much money anyway. Including the prize money from this tournament, Alex only had less than 12 million Poke Dollars to his name. That's the end of this tale for now. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in part 14. Peace.
Thank you.